যদি সবাই ফিরে যায়, ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা সবাই ফিরে যায়, যদি গহন পথে যাওয়ার কালে কেউ ফিরে না চায়, তবে পথের কাটা তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে, তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে। যদি আলো না ধরে, ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা আলো না ধরে, যদি ঝড় বাদলে আধার রাতে দুয়ার দেয় ঘরে, তবে বজ্রানলে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে, আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে। একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো রে।
Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. First, some announcements. One is that the song I've been talking about, my personal project, which is going to be based on the Kalbhairavashtakam, but it's going to do many other things. It's going to have a social message, and it's going to highlight West Bengal's martial cultures as well. Okay, and it's going to have rap. So far that we have decided, it's going to feature a phenomenal Bengali rapper. Now, but since the project has to be pretty big, since it has to compete with international artists, at least on video level, which is not in my hands. On in terms of music, I can handle everything, but in video, since I can't, I will be looking for crowdfunding the project, and I will soon share a Kickstarter link and stuff where I will hope all of you all will donate whatever the amount you can possibly. And the second thing I've been meaning to remind, I forgot to talk about this the day we discussed fitness and self-defense and home workouts and stuff. I was talking about how shadow boxing is a great replacement for running, even real boxing training if you do want to just work out at home and stuff. Someone reminded me that, well, I don't have a punching bag. Will that be enough? Yeah, practicing without punching bag still has its benefits because of lung endurance and general skills of your hands, the way you must move and all that all gets programmed into your body. But of course, hitting a real thing has no replacement if you punch in the air. There is one side substitute, okay, which is knuckle push-ups. Okay, do shadow boxing, and whenever you do push-ups, do knuckle push-ups, and not on yoga mats. Working out on yoga mats is for pussies, okay? Remember this. Do knuckle push-ups on normal, real hard floors. That's what I do. Trouble in front of SSC office. Oh, acha. Okay, today we are going to discuss this sociologist called André Beteille for a particular reason. I'm not still aware of his works. Mr. Sociologist recommended me his stuff, and he suggested 2 videos from where we will learn of his work and his research. But he suggested the title that the sociologist who was against reservations, and I don't know why. I don't know what his views are. So I'm very curious. Let's check this out. This is going to be basically a live reaction video to one of his interviews and one other video on him. This is from a channel called Sociology Classes by Shibu. It's from an Indian account. It's in Hindi, I think. It's called André Beteille, Caste, Class and Power. Let's see.
एक पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू पेश करते हैं। वेलकम टू सोशियोलॉजी क्लासेस। मैं हूं आपका दोस्त शिबू। सोशियोलॉजिकल थिंकर के सीरीज में आज हम डिस्कस करने वाले हैं आंद्रे बेते के बारे में। आंद्रे बेते हमारे इंडियन सोशियोलॉजी में एक इम्पॉर्टेंट नाम है। हम जब कास्ट सिस्टम को स्टडी करते हैं, कास्ट सिस्टम में हमें बहुत जगहों पर आंद्रे बेते का नाम मिलता है। साथ ही साथ जब हम एग्रीरियन स्ट्रक्चर पढ़ते हैं, एग्रीकल्चर के लिए स्ट्रक्चर जब हम स्टडी करते हैं, वहां पर भी हम आंद्रे बेते का नाम देखते हैं। आज के इस क्लास में आंद्रे बेते के कॉन्सेप्ट को ही हम डिस्कस करने वाले हैं। यहाँ पर आप एक पिक्चर देख रहे होंगे। यहाँ पर लेफ्ट हैंड साइड पे है आंद्रे बेते और राइट हैंड साइड पर है एपीजे अब्दुल कलाम। 2005 में आंद्रे बेते को पद्म भूषण पुरस्कार दिया गया था। इससे आप लोगों को अंदाजा लग सकता है कि आंद्रे बेते का कंट्रीब्यूशन इंडियन सोशियोलॉजी में कितना इंपॉर्टेंट था। खास करके उन्होंने कास्ट सिस्टम के ऊपर जिस तरीके का रिसर्च किया है, वहां पर उनको जिस तरीके का फाइंडिंग्स मिली थी, इसके वजह से वो बहुत ही पॉपुलर है इंडिया में। आज के इस क्लास में आंद्रे बेते ने कास्ट सिस्टम के बारे में क्या कहा था, ये डिस्कस करेंगे। फिर देखेंगे कास्ट, क्लास एंड पावर का कॉन्सेप्ट और एग्रीडियन स्ट्रक्चर इन इंडिया का कॉन्सेप्ट। आज का ये क्लास आप लोगों के लिए बहुत ज्यादा हेल्पफुल होने वाली है। अगर आपने अभी तक मेरे क्लासेस को सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया है तो चैनल, यहाँ पर बहुत सारे प्लेलिस्ट्स है। आप लोग अपने पसंद के हिसाब से प्लेलिस्ट चूज करके स्टडी कर सकते हो। आपको चीजें ढूंढने में आसानी होगी। तो चलिए आज का ये जो सेशन है ये हम शुरू करते हैं। आंद्रे बेते एक इंडियन सोशियोलॉजिस्ट है। इनका जन्म हुआ था चंदनागुर एक जगह पर 1934 में। वो जो जगह थी वो फ्रेंच रूल के अंडर में थी।
Oh, West Bengal, Chandanagar. Retro is saying, when will you react on Dwarkesh Patel and Sarah Payne? Yeah, there are many videos of the two talking, no, about all are 1 hour, 2 hours each. Which one to discuss? Even Mr. Sociologist sent me a video of Sarah Payne.
उनके जो पिताजी है वो एक फ्रेंच थे और उनके माताजी एक इंडियन बंगाली थी। इस वजह से उनका जो
Oh.
लालन पालन हुआ था वो थोड़ा डिफरेंट तरीके से हुआ था।
Yeah, the YouTuber himself, the teacher is actually Bengali himself, and so this professor's mother tongue was Bengali.
पर वो अलग तरीके का कल्चर के बीच में वो पले बड़े थे।
But André and Beteille, none of them are Bengali or Hindu names.
इसका इन्फ्लुएंस भी हम उनके कामों में देखते हैं। साथ ही साथ उनका जो माइंड सेट है वो भी उसी तरीके से डेवलप हुआ था। अब ये इन्होंने जो सोशियोलॉजी का स्टडी किया था वहां पर उन्होंने अपना पीएचडी कंप्लीट की थी एमएन श्रीनिवास के अंडर में। एमएन श्रीनिवास के बारे में हम सभी जानते हैं। उनका जो संस्कृताइजेशन का कॉन्सेप्ट है ये बहुत पॉपुलर है। और इंडिया में जब फील्ड व्यू की हम बात करते हैं, इसके लिए सबसे आगे जिसका नाम आता है वो है एमएन श्रीनिवास। इन्होंने बुक व्यू को नकार दिया था और फील्ड व्यू को अपनाया था। अब आंद्रे बेते एमएन श्रीनिवास के स्टूडेंट थे, इस वजह से उनके काम में भी हम
There are going to be always handicaps with preferring either of the two. Okay, having just bookish views or book based views, or having just research views, both I think can be incomplete, because whether you go to a place or read books, you are never getting the whole picture. You're never getting the entire history of a group of people, or you're not talking to each and every person from the group you are researching or the place you are researching. So it's always going to be kind of incomplete, but a rough view is what you'll at best get from any kind of research.
व्यू का इंपॉर्टेंस बहुत ज्यादा देखते हैं। उन्होंने अपना जो मेजर फील्ड वर्क किया था श्रीपुरम विलेज में, वहां पर भी हम फील्ड वर्क देखते हैं और ये बहुत ज्यादा पॉपुलर है हमारी इंडियन सोशियोलॉजी के लिए। आंद्रे बेते ने बहुत सारे इंस्टीट्यूशन में एजुकेशन दी है। इनमें से जो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है वो है दिल्ली स्कूल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स और नॉर्थ ईस्टर्न हिल यूनिवर्सिटी। ये दो यूनिवर्सिटी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है जहां पर इन्होंने अपनी शिक्षा दान की थी। इनको पद्म भूषण पुरस्कार से नवाजा गया था 2005 में। इनका जो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट काम है वो है कास्ट, क्लास एंड पावर का। André Bete, Max Web.
So you see, Irfan Habib in 1997, Nicholas Dirks in the 80s, Dipankar Gupta in year 2000, and now this guy gets Padma Bhushan in 2005. So someone in the government had definitely plans to move on from simply caste-based atrocity literature discourse and maybe reduce reservations probably, or modify the discourse around reservations probably, and take India to a new era. And then BJP won, and therefore everyone fell back on simply talking about caste, because that's the easiest way to win votes in India.
वेबर से भी बहुत ज्यादा इन्फ्लुएंस्ड थे। मैक्स वेबर का
इन्फ्लुएंस फ्रॉम वेबर, नो वंडर।
जो ट्रिनिटेरियन मॉडल था या फिर जिसको हम ट्रिपार्टाइल मॉडल कहते हैं, उससे वो बहुत ज्यादा इन्फ्लुएंस थे। अब ये मॉडल बेसिकली है क्या? हम जब कार्ल मार्क्स की बात करते हैं, कार्ल मार्क्स हमारी सोसाइटी को देखने के सिर्फ एक पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू पेश करते हैं। उन्होंने सिर्फ इकोनॉमी से ही सारी चीजों को देखने की कोशिश की थी, लेकिन मैक्स वेबर ने कास्ट, स्टेटस और पार्टी, ये तीनों को एक साथ जोड़कर सोसाइटी को देखा था। खासकर सोसाइटी में जो स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन हो रहा था उस टाइम पीरियड पर, क्लास का जो स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन था उसको देखने के लिए उन्होंने तीन चीजों का यूज किया था। क्लास, स्टेटस और पार्टी। यहाँ पर थोड़ा गलत हो गया है, ये कास्ट नहीं होगा, ये होगा क्लास, स्टेटस और पार्टी।
Because castes, according to Max Weber, are status groups.
यहाँ पर मैक्स वेबर के ट्रिनिटेरियन मॉडल से ही इन्फ्लुएंस्ड होके एंद्रे बेते ने इंडिया में इसी मॉडल को इंप्लीमेंट किया था। उन्होंने कास्ट सिस्टम को, खासकर इंडियन सोसाइटी को समझने के लिए, कास्ट सिस्टम को पढ़ने के लिए उन्होंने ये ट्रिपर्टाइल मॉडल का यूज किया था, जहां पर उन्होंने कास्ट, क्लास और पावर की बात की थी। यहाँ पर हम देखते हैं कि आंद्रे बेते इंडिया में जो सोशल स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन है इसको वो एनालाइज करते हैं। यहाँ पर इंडियन सोसाइटी का जो कॉम्प्लेक्स सोशल स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन का सिस्टम है इसको वो कास्ट, क्लास और पावर के जरिए समझाने की कोशिश करते हैं। आज के क्लास में इसी चीज के ऊपर हम ज्यादा फोकस करने वाले हैं। अब यहाँ पर मैंने एक चार्ट तैयार करने की कोशिश की है। अगर आप लोग ये सिर्फ चार्ट भी समझ जाओगे तो आपको एंद्रे बेते के रिलेटेड ज्यादातर चीजें पता चल जाएगी। खासकर अगर आप लोग एमसीक्यू बेस्ड एग्जाम दे रहे हो तो ये अगर चार्ट आप लोगों को याद हो गया तो आपका बहुत सारे आंसर्स हो जाएंगे। अब इस चार्ट में बेसिकली है क्या?
Check out the criticism he has received. People have said, well, it's narrow empiricism. A single village study cannot be generalized for whole India. Meanwhile, everyone who simply does the other side of anti-casteism research also research one village only. Every individual researcher researches one village only or one locality. How is all of that research applicable to or generalized for the rest of the country?
बेते का मेजर वर्क कौन सा है, यानी कि उनका कौन सा वो बुक है जो सबसे ज्यादा पॉपुलर है? उनका मेजर वर्क है कास्ट, क्लास एंड पावर, चेंजिंग पैटर्न ऑफ स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन इन ए तेंजोर विलेज 1965। अब ये जो काम था उन्होंने श्रीपुरम विलेज में किया था, जो तेंजोर डिस्ट्रिक्ट में है, तमिलनाडु में। वहां पर उन्होंने अपना फील्ड वर्क किया था। फील्ड वर्क करके उन्होंने ये बुक लिखी थी जिसका नाम है कास्ट, क्लास एंड पावर, और ये बहुत बार एग्जाम में पूछा गया है। इस वजह से इसको जरा रट लीजिएगा, अच्छी तरीके से देख लीजिएगा। कास्ट, क्लास एंड पावर का वर्ड अगर किसी के साथ रिलेट होगा वो होगा एंद्रे बेते के साथ। उनका जो पर्सपेक्टिव था वो था वेबरियन ट्रिनिटेरियन पर्सपेक्टिव, जहां पर उन्होंने वेबर का
But he still uses the word caste and not status.
ट्रिनिटेरियन जो मॉडल है उसको इंडिया में इंप्लीमेंट किया था। ये
Otherwise, नहीं तो शायद इंडिया में PhD होता नहीं इनका।
क्वेश्चन भी बहुत बार आ चुका है कि वेबर का ट्रिनिटेरियन मॉडल को इंडिया में किसने अप्लाई किया था? इसको अप्लाई किया था एंद्रे बेते ने। उनका जो व्यू था वो था मल्टी डायमेंशनल व्यू। वो सिर्फ एक चीज के ऊपर फोकस नहीं कर रहे थे। हम जहां पर ज्यादातर थिंकर्स की, अगर हम खास करके घुरे और लुई दोमो की बात करें तो वो लोग कास्ट के ऊपर ज्यादा फोकस कर रहे थे, लेकिन ये जो आंद्रे बेते है वो मल्टी डायमेंशनल व्यू देखते हैं सोसाइटी का। यहाँ पर वो कास्ट, क्लास, पावर ये तीनों को मिक्सअप करके सोसाइटी
Yeah, Trev, I to agree with this view, but everyone on the other side has been doing exactly this only, nothing different from this.
को समझते थे। साथ ही साथ उन्होंने किनशिप का भी इंपॉर्टेंस के बारे में बात की थी। इनका जो फील्ड वर्क है वो है श्रीपुरम विलेज में। ये नाम जरूर याद रख लीजिएगा, खासकर यूजीसी नेट के जो भी लोग एग्जाम दे रहे हो उनके लिए ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट नाम है। जो भी फील्ड वर्क है अलग अलग थिंकर का, इनका एक लिस्ट जरूर बना लीजिएगा, क्योंकि इस लिस्ट से आप लोगों को बहुत ज्यादा मदद मिलने वाली है। अब आंद्रे बेते का जो फील्ड वर्क है वो है श्रीपुरम विलेज में। श्रीपुरम विलेज में उन्होंने फील्ड वर्क किया था। यहाँ पर जो कास्ट सिस्टम है उसके ऊपर उन्होंने स्टडी किया था। अब इनका जो फील्ड वर्क है, इन्होंने अपने ज्यादातर जो राइटिंग्स है वो श्रीपुरम विलेज के ऊपर डिपेंड कर ही लिखी थी। कास्ट, क्लास एंड पावर बुक में उन्होंने जो भी कॉन्सेप्ट के बारे में बात की थी, इस वजह से इनको इसी ग्राउंड में क्रिटिसाइज भी किया जाता है कि उन्होंने सिर्फ एक ही विलेज को स्टडी करके होल इंडिया के लिए जनरलाइज कर दिया था। यानी कि होल इंडिया के बारे में वो बात कर रहे हैं सिर्फ एक।
भाई हर कोई ऐसा ही करता है। Everyone's books, everyone's core thesis topics and all in anthropology, sociology, PhD topics have been this only. Like Declan Quigley's work was in a specific locality in Nepal. Nicholas Dirks was in a specific village in South India.
विलेज को स्टडी करके इसके वजह से उनको क्रिटिसाइज भी किया जाता है। अब उन्होंने इस विलेज में काम किया था और ये इतना पॉपुलर क्यों है? यहाँ पर उन्होंने बहुत सारे फीचर्स देखी थी इस श्रीपुरम विलेज में। यहाँ पर उन्होंने देखा था कि जो रिचुअल स्टेटस है, हम जहां पर कास्ट स्टेटस की बात करते हैं जिसको हम रिचुअल स्टेटस भी कहते हैं, सिर्फ यही एक चीज नहीं है जो हमारे स्ट्रक्चरल रिलेशनशिप को डिटरमाइन करती है। यानी सोसाइटी में हमारा कौन सा पोजीशन होगा ये हमारा रिचुअल स्टेटस डिसाइड नहीं करती है। इसके अलावा भी और भी बहुत सारे फैक्टर्स हैं जो हमारे स्ट्रक्चर में, किसी भी सोसाइटी के स्ट्रक्चर में किसी भी इंसान का।
इसीलिए आउट ऑफ द ब्लू ये नैरो एम्पिरिसिज्म का क्रिटिसिज्म इनको मिल रहा है, जो कि जिंदगी में मैंने किसी से आज तक किसी सोशियोलॉजिस्ट के लिए नहीं सुना है, क्योंकि हर कोई ऐसा ही रिसर्च करता है।
पोजीशन तय करेगा। उन्होंने कहा है कि कास्ट के साथ साथ पावर और क्लास ये दोनों भी इक्वली इंपॉर्टेंट है। इन तीनों को मिला के, कास्ट, क्लास और पावर, ये तीनों को मिला के ही हम एक इंसान का पोजीशन पता कर सकते हैं एक सोसाइटी में। इन्होंने कहा था कि जो विलेजेस है वो बाकी के अलग जो सोसाइटी है इनके आसपास, विलेजेस के जो आसपास के सोसाइटी है उनके साथ इंटीग्रेटेड होती है। इनका जो व्यू था वो था सिस्टेमिक व्यू। यहाँ पर सिस्टेमेटिक तरीके से एक गांव दूसरे गांव के साथ रिलेटेड रहता है और इसके वजह से एक गांव के लोग दूसरे गांव के चीजों के द्वारा इन्फ्लुएंस्ड होते हैं, शहर से भी इन्फ्लुएंस्ड होती है। उन्होंने देखा था कि श्रीपुरम विलेजेस में जो भी लोग रह रहे हैं उनमें बहुत ज्यादा स्ट्रक्चरल चेंजेस देखी जा रही थी। जो पुराने जमाने जिस तरीके से कास्ट सिस्टम चल रहा था, वहां पर उन्होंने जिस टाइम पीरियड पे स्टडी की थी 1960s के आसपास, उस टाइम पीरियड पे उन्होंने देखा था कि वहां पर जो लोग थे उनके बीच में स्ट्रक्चरल बदलाव आ रही है। जो अपर कास्ट के जो लोग हैं वो उतने ज्यादा पावरफुल नहीं रह रहे हैं, साथ ही साथ जो निचले वर्ग के लोग हैं वो भी धीरे धीरे ऊपर आ रहे हैं। इनके उन्होंने बहुत
see, when he's researching in the 60s, landed elite, check out this section. Landed elite from upper caste no longer call the shots. Structural shifts are happening. Now landed elite from OBCs call the shots. Or at least maybe later on. But at least from the upper caste were no longer calling the shots. And he's wondering why. Ritualists, they are still the purer ones. Retroive is asking, what the fuck is caste and class, as if it's different? Aren't both the same thing in Indian context? No, that is the entirety of our argument, because caste and class is not the same. If caste and class were same, then where's the question of status and metaphysical desires of Rene Girard? Whether it's India or not, that's not even a factor, because think of a Trinamool Gunda with a name like, let's say, Pintu Padui, Oyon Shapui, Mintu Noshkar. He probably has Mercedes and stuff by being in Trinamool. Who's going to think of him as a legitimate high status, high caste or high class even guy? Because we often use the term class unknowingly as a substitute for the word caste or status. Only in academia, while writing, we use the word class in terms of economics. Because otherwise, high class person, the phrase colloquially, means a high status person. Now tell me, who will think of letting their daughter, especially if they are from Brahmin Boito family in Kolkata, how many of them are going to let their daughters, or willingly let their daughters marry those people? We call them new money. Yeah, why new money if class and caste is the same thing, right? Even in the next generation, he's going to be the same way. He's going to be looked upon the same way. His children are going to be looked upon the same way, because he's not going to be able to give any. His children are not going to be able to inherit any cultural capital or social capital. His social capital is still Trinamool's Gunda or Trinamool's Gunda's son. In the third generation onwards, maybe so. Because after all, economics has something to do with it. Think of it like an inverted pyramid, okay? In the beginning, yes, it's economics which sets things into motion. But very soon it starts being so many things on top of it that economics almost loses its importance. But the starting point is always economics. JP Singh, you didn't answer my question. I can't see your question. Your question is not visible here. Type it again. Gali wali de diya kya? Yeah, so retracing, the higher up you are, the easier it is for you to gather resources, therefore helping you maintain or grow your status. Yeah, but why status? If class is everything, then why a caste or a status? The very fact that you are even looking to grow your status means class is not the entirety of it.
सारे और भी कारण बताए थे। यहाँ पर ये जो फीचर्स है ये सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट फीचर्स है और एग्जाम में इनको आप लोगों को जरूर कोट करना है और एमसीक्यू बेस्ड क्वेश्चन में तो ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। अब यहाँ पर श्रीपुरम में उन्होंने देखा था कि जो कास्ट सिस्टम है, कास्ट सिस्टम के बारे में जब हम पढ़ते हैं, नॉर्मली वर्ण सिस्टम में 4 वर्ण हम देखते हैं। ब्राह्मण,
ओ जीपी सिंह का डीपी चेंज हो गया, देयरफॉर आई कुडंट फिगर। ओ या दैट्स कॉल्ड जीपी सिंह। अरे हर 5 मिनट में नाम चेंज करता है। So yes, he is asking, was André Beteille leftist? No social scientist is ever a right winger. They may be different shades of liberal, maybe leftist.
वैश्य शूद्र, लेकिन आंद्रे बेते
If now they didn't utter the word Marxist for him as of yet, he's more Weberian than Marxist. But if someone usually tries to disentangle caste from rituals, then they are usually Marxist.
ने श्रीपुरम विलेज में स्टडी करके उन्होंने देखा है कि वहां पर 3 सेगमेंट्स है कास्ट सिस्टम के, यानी कि कास्ट सिस्टम के उन्होंने 3 पार्ट्स को वहां पर देखा था। 3 तरीके का कास्ट है जो उस जगह पर इंपॉर्टेंट थे। एक है ब्राह्मण, फिर नॉन ब्राह्मण और आदि द्राविडास। ब्राह्मण होते हैं जो अपर कास्ट के लोग हैं, उनको ब्राह्मण कहा जाता है। फिर आते हैं नॉन ब्राह्मण, जो लोग ब्राह्मण कास्ट से नहीं बिलोंग करते हैं लेकिन इक्वली उनके पास थोड़ा बहुत चीजें होती है। और फिर आते हैं निचले वर्ग के लोग जिनको अनटचेबल्स कहा जाता है, और श्रीपुरम विलेज में इन अनटचेबल्स को आदि द्राविडास कहा जाता है। ये जो 3 नाम है ये जरूर याद रख लीजिएगा। अब ये जो कास्ट के सेगमेंट है, सिर्फ 3 ही कास्ट के बारे में उन्होंने बात नहीं
Uh, um, they are not going to be right wingers in any sense of the word, but at least nationalism back then was not really that right wing of a concept. After Hitler, right wing became only a bad thing, but back then nationalism was in cahoots with communism and socialism, but as a response to colonialism. So it was all muddled up back then.
की थी। उन्होंने कहा था कि जो श्रीपुरम विलेज है वहां पर और भी बहुत सारे सब कास्ट है, जो ब्राह्मण्स है, ब्राह्मण्स के बीच में भी और भी बहुत सारे टुकड़े हुए हैं, उनके ब्राह्मण्स के बीच में भी बहुत सारे डिवीजन देखी जाती है, लेकिन वो सारे डिवीजन हमारे लिए इतने ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है। हमें ये 3 जो नाम है ब्राह्मण, नॉन ब्राह्मण और आदि द्राविडास, ये याद रखना जरूरी है। अब इन्हीं सारी चीजों के वजह से उनको क्रिटिसाइज किया जाता है क्योंकि उन्होंने श्रीपुरम विलेज को ही स्टडी किया था और इसको स्टडी करके उन्होंने होल इंडिया के लिए जनरलाइज कर दिया था।
तो किसने भाई पूरे सब के सब विलेजेस में घुमाए भाई? कौन सा एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट है ऐसा?
लेकिन फिर भी आंद्रे बेते का जो कॉन्सेप्ट है, जो भी श्रीपुरम विलेज में उन्होंने जो भी चीजें देखी थी, उन सारी चीजें बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है हमारी इंडियन सोशियोलॉजी के लिए। अब देखते हैं आंद्रे बेते का इंपॉर्टेंट बुक्स। आंद्रे बेते ने बहुत सारे बुक्स लिखी है, लेकिन इनमें से जो इंपॉर्टेंट है वो है कास्ट, क्लास एंड पावर, जो उन्होंने तेंजोर विलेज में स्टडी किया था, सोशल स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन को देखा था, इंडियन सोशल स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन को। फिर कास्ट ओल्ड एंड न्यू, इनइक्वालिटी एंड सोशल चेंज, स्टडीज इन एग्रेरियन सोशल स्ट्रक्चर। ये जो बुक है ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है क्योंकि उन्होंने एग्रेरियन सोशल स्ट्रक्चर के ऊपर भी काम किया था। वहां पर किस तरीके से क्लास में डिवीजन होता है, उसका क्या क्या रीजंस है, उसके बारे में भी उन्होंने बात की थी। हम आगे क्लास में एग्रेरियन सोशल स्ट्रक्चर के बारे में थोड़ा देखेंगे। इसके अलावा भी उन्होंने बहुत सारे बुक्स लिखी है। अगर आपको नॉलेज के लिए पढ़ना है तो आप लोग बाकी सारे बुक्स देख सकते हो, नहीं तो ये जो 4 ऊपर के बुक्स है यही सबसे ज्यादा एग्जाम में पूछे जाते हैं। अब देखते हैं एनालिसिस ऑफ कास्ट। कास्ट को उन्होंने किस तरीके से देखा था। आंद्रे
JP Singh is asking, narrator of the video said Brahmins are called upper caste, but what is the basis of them being called upper caste? That's the now this can't get into a philosophical discussion at every step of the way, right? Are you really upper caste in today's sense of the word? No, at some point we have to draw the line and call them by the terms that people generally call these people. For example, Adi Dravidas. People obviously use that believing in the Aryan invasion theory. We don't care. We are talking about a group of people who are called Adi Dravidas. We are talking about a group of people who are considered upper caste. Regardless of what they are called right now, we are going to talk about those specific people, whether it's called upper caste or upper or United Kingdom, Uttarakhand, no matter what they are called, we are going to talk about that. We are going to learn about that specific group. Now, you might ask whether they were in fact considered upper caste there at all, in that village even. There, though, yes, different jatis are higher and lower in different parts of the country. And plus ritual status, though, definitely. But his main point is that upper castes are no longer calling the shots. Why is this happening? Why are all of a sudden the landed upper caste elites not calling the shots? That is the main point of his research. Anand is saying, I'm curious, did Ambedkar travel to? Oh, yeah. People also call ST as Dalit, but they are not all Dalit. Yeah.
कास्ट को एक अलग नजरिए से देखने की कोशिश की थी। उनका जो अंडरस्टैंड कर करने का तरीका है वो थोड़ा अलग था। उन्होंने इंटरैक्शनल अप्रोच यूज किया था। इंटरैक्शनल अप्रोच यानी कि लोग किस तरीके से इंटरैक्ट करते हैं, एक दूसरे के साथ किस तरीके से मिलते हैं, इंटरैक्ट करते हैं, इसके ऊपर उन्होंने बहुत ज्यादा फोकस किया था। ज्यादातर जो थ्योरिस्ट थे उस टाइम पीरियड पे वो लोग एक यूनिडायमेंशनल अप्रोच यूज करते थे, यानी कि वो लोग देखते थे कि सिर्फ कास्ट ही जो है वो हमारी सोसाइटी का मेन पार्ट है, कास्ट के द्वारा ही बाकी सारी चीजें गाइडेड होती है। लेकिन इस चीज को बेते ने नकार दिया था और वो कहते हैं कि सोसाइटी में कास्ट के अलावा भी बाकी चीजें भी इक्वली इंपॉर्टेंट है, सोशल स्ट्रक्चर में भी बाकी सारी चीजें भी इंपॉर्टेंट होती है। अब इनका जो मेजर फील्ड वर्क था वो था श्रीपुरम विलेज में, जो तेंजोर डिस्ट्रिक्ट में था, तमिलनाडु का। यहाँ पर उन्होंने एम्पिरिकल स्टडी किया था, वहां पर वो खुद रहकर उन्होंने फील्ड वर्क की थी और इसको उन्होंने अपने वर्क श्रीपुरम ए विलेज इन तेंजोर डिस्ट्रिक्ट में इस चीज को मेंशन किया था। साथ ही साथ इसी काम को उन्होंने आगे बढ़ाते हुए कास्ट, क्लास एंड पावर जो बुक है
Anand, I have heard that OBCs, before the category called OBC came about, weren't they upper castes anyway? That I'm curious about, why are Brahmin millennials choosing Swiggy, Zomato, or Uber rather than going into puja model of earning money? I know pujaris who make bank. Convenience, सर्वोपरि.
है वो बुक लिखी थी और जो सबसे ज्यादा पॉपुलर है हमारी इंडिया में। अब जब हम दूसरे थिंकर्स की बात करते हैं, खासकर घुरे और लुई दोमो, ये जो थिंकर्स है ये कास्ट को देखते हैं रिचुअल एस्पेक्ट से हिसाब से, या फिर जो आइडियोलॉजिकल एस्पेक्ट है इसके हिसाब से देखते हैं। अब ये रिचुअल एस्पेक्ट या फिर आइडियोलॉजिकल एस्पेक्ट क्या है? घुरे और दोमो ये लोग कहते हैं कि जो हमारा सोसाइटी है वहां पर कास्ट ही सारे चीजों का मेन कारण है, कास्ट के द्वारा ही रिचुअल गाइडेड होते हैं, जो भी रिचुअल होती है उसके हिसाब से ही हमारी सोसाइटी में कौन कौन सी पोजीशन पे होगा, किसको किस तरीके का काम करना पड़ेगा, ये सारी चीजें डिसाइडेड होती है, यानी कि चीजें सारी प्री डिसाइडेड होती है, बुक्स में लिखी हुई है। लेकिन एंद्रे बेते इन सारे लोगों से थोड़ा हटके है। ये हमारी इंडियन
This is where Duma screwed up the most. I didn't know even Ghure believed in that. Okay, then so yeah. GP Singh is saying not even all SCs are Dalits. Yes, of course. Shahas are considered the Shahas who didn't face partition, who had their wealth here. They are scheduled castes. They have SC certificates, and of course not Brahmins. Not all Brahmins are even Brahmins. In what sense is Mamata Banerjee a Brahmin? They were not upper caste, Zada. They were military protectors. Aren't military protectors upper caste in the sense of Kshatriyas? So many functioned in multiple roles, Kshatriya, landed Vaishyas, or sometimes even to the extent of calling them. Yeah, but all of them are considered upper caste. Anand, in academia, all the V1, V2, V3 are considered upper caste in that sense. GP Singh is saying it depends on what you call upper and lower caste. In modern leftist sense, OBC consists of upper and lower caste both, right?
सोसाइटी को समझने के लिए एक वाइडर व्यू का रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं, यानी कि हम सिर्फ एक चीज के ऊपर फोकस नहीं करेंगे, सिर्फ कास्ट के ऊपर हमारा फोकस नहीं होगा। उन्होंने इसी जगह पर वेबर का जो ट्रिनिटेरियन मॉडल है इसको अप्लाई किया था और इंडिया में उन्होंने अप्लाई करके कहा था कि सिर्फ कास्ट नहीं, कास्ट के साथ साथ क्लास और पावर भी इक्वली इंपॉर्टेंट है इंडियन सोसाइटी को समझने के लिए, और इंडियन सोसाइटी में जो सोशल स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन हो रहा है उसके लिए भी ये तीनों चीजों को हमें इक्वली ही समझना होगा, तभी हम सोसाइटी के स्ट्रक्चर को समझ पाएंगे। अब देखते हैं कास्ट, क्लास एंड पावर के रिलेटेड उन्होंने क्या कहा था। अब हम आगे जो भी चीजें देखने वाले हैं वो थोड़ा डिस्क्रिप्टिव टाइप है। मैं यहाँ पर चीजों को सेपरेट नहीं करूंगा, कास्ट, क्लास और पावर ये तीनों को अलग अलग अगर समझाऊंगा तो आप लोगों को चीजें थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड लगेगा। इस वजह से मैं इस चीज को थोड़ा डिटेल में बताऊंगा और आखिर में थोड़ा समराइज करने की कोशिश करूंगा। अब इन्होंने कास्ट सिस्टम को स्टडी किया था। एंद्रे बेते ने कहा था कि जो हमारा सोसाइटी है इसमें सोशल स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन को समझने के लिए हम सिर्फ कास्ट को यूज नहीं करेंगे, कास्ट के साथ साथ क्लास, पावर और किनशिप की भी हमें ज्यादा जरूरत है। इन तीनों चीजों को भी हमें समझना जरूरी है। किनशिप का जो वर्ड है, किनशिप जो है ये भी इक्वली ही इंपॉर्टेंट है, सिर्फ क्लास और पावर नहीं, उन्होंने किनशिप के ऊपर भी जोर दिया था। आंद्रे बेते कहते हैं कि जो हमारे इंडिया में जो भी लोग स्टडी कर रहे थे इंडियन सोसाइटी को, वो लोग ज्यादातर सिर्फ कास्ट के ऊपर फोकस कर रहे थे, लेकिन कास्ट का जो स्ट्रक्चरल एस्पेक्ट है, किस तरीके से कास्ट बनता है, कास्ट किस तरीके से काम करता है, वहां पर जो स्ट्रक्चर है उसमें जो इकोनॉमी और पॉलिटिक्स का रोल है, इसको ज्यादातर लोग अंडर एस्टिमेट करते हैं और इसको इग्नोर भी करते हैं। आंद्रे बेते ने कहा है कि हमारी सोसाइटी को समझने के लिए कास्ट के साथ साथ कास्ट का जो स्ट्रक्चरल एस्पेक्ट है, किस तरीके से स्ट्रक्चर में रह रहा है, खासकर इकोनॉमी और पॉलिटिकल डायमेंशंस को हमें नजर में रखना होगा।
When the phrase political dimension is being used, think of those concepts, okay? Metaphysical desire of Rene Girard, the things you desire just to show off, asceticism, proximity to power, i.e., slash proximity to legitimacy, and also, yeah, mainly these three things. These are what come under political dimensions, and of course, influence. You have to be close to power, you have to reject power, and you have to have metaphysical desires.
होगा हम इन चीजों को इग्नोर नहीं कर सकते हैं। बेते ने स्टडी करते हुए अलग अलग रिलेशनशिप को समझा था, खासकर इकोनॉमिक और पॉलिटिक्स के रिलेटेड चीजों को उन्होंने स्टडी किया था। उन्होंने अपर कास्ट और लोअर कास्ट को स्टडी किया था। वहां पर लैंड ओनिंग और लैंडलेस कास्ट कौन कौन है, इनके बीच में डिफरेंशिएट उन्होंने करने की कोशिश की थी। साथ साथ जो जजमानी सिस्टम है, वहां पर जो हम जजमान और कामीन्स को देखते हैं, इनको भी उन्होंने स्टडी की थी।
Yeah, remember the paper we discussed by Dr. Shumit Guho on Jajmani system of Maharashtra? He also pointed out how it has almost nothing to do with Hinduism, and he points out that when the British leave, when the political system has changed, and there's not enough funding for religious stuff, the first profession to go is the profession of the purohits and jajmans and stuff. Okay, and Shumit Guho trolls Dumo, even naming him, saying that, oh wait, Dumo said everything happens based on rituals, no? Why is this guy's profession going away first in line just because of funds soaking up, funds drying up? Okay.
सिर्फ कास्ट को नहीं, कास्ट का जो इकोनॉमिक पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू है और पॉलिटिकल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू है, वो भी उन्होंने देखने की कोशिश की थी। अलग अलग नजरियों से, अलग अलग डायमेंशन से उन्होंने कास्ट को स्टडी की थी। इस वजह से उन्होंने देखा था कि जो सोसाइटी में सिर्फ कास्ट नहीं है, वहां पर हम अलग अलग तरीके का क्लास भी देखते हैं। यानी कि जो लोग एक जैसा कमा रहे हैं या फिर जिनके पास एक जैसा लैंड है, वो एक क्लास से बिलोंग करते हैं, और उनका जो रहन सहन होता है, उनका जो वैल्यू सिस्टम होता है, वो भी एक जैसा होता है, और ये कास्ट और क्लास पावर के साथ भी रिलेटेड है। आंद्रे बेते ने देखा था कि जो ये कास्ट सिस्टम है, कास्ट सिस्टम रियलिटी में थोड़ा अलग है। हम जो कल्चरल व्यू देखते हैं, जो हमें जीएस घुरे,
हाँ, थोड़ा अलग तो होगा ही। एंड बाय द वे आनंद, दिस कमेंट दैट यू मेड हियर, that so many functioned in multiple roles, Kshatriya, landed Vaishyas. Remember, the main problem is that you can't even retrofit all of those jatis into any specific varna. वहां पे तो असली घपला वहां पे है. You can't do that, but it's done forcefully in academia.
और लुई डूमो दिखाते हैं कि हमारे कल्चर में जिस तरीके से हो रही है कास्ट, या फिर बुक में जिस तरीके से लिखा हुआ है, उस तरीके से ही सोसाइटी में चल रहा है। लेकिन बेते के हिसाब से ये इस तरीके का काम नहीं करता है। हम जिस तरीके से कल्चरल एक आइडियल टाइप देखते हैं कास्ट का, उस तरीके से हमारा सोसाइटी में रियलिटी नहीं है। कास्ट का रियलिटी थोड़ा अलग है। कास्ट हमारी सोसाइटी में
Yes, retrowave. The people who had a problem with Narendra Modi for specifically being a chaiwala and stuff, did they have a problem, or will they ever have a problem with Kanhaiya Kumar? Their earning might be same. Kanhaiya might be even poorer than Narendra Modi. They like Kanhaiya Kumar, they don't like Narendra Modi. It's not even just because of Kanhaiya being a leftist. No. If they ever bothered to check out Narendra Modi's policy, they would find out that yes, that guy is an absolute socialist. Why haven't they even bothered to find this out? Why are they why do they treat Modi as an untouchable, at least metaphorically speaking, academically speaking? Why is Modi untouchable but not Kanhaiya Kumar, even though their class is probably the same? Kanhaiya might be poorer. It's because of Kanhaiya Kumar's cultural capital that he acquired in JNU. His I think only cultural capital, some social capital, yes, because of becoming a neta and stuff, but mainly cultural capital. The fact that even then he might have been a little stayed away from because of his Bihari accent, but then there's a counter narrative to that as well, ever since we were kids, that yeah, it's okay, that's just a subaltern speaking in his own way. But since his consumption patterns eventually become like that of the Brahmin Boido caste of Kolkata, or whichever castes are dominant in non-Bengali castes, which are dominant in social sciences in DU and JNU, since his consumption pattern becomes that way, whether based on the books they discuss, the topics they discuss, the films they discuss, that's when Kanhaiya Kumar's becomes a part of their clique, their exclusive group with their specific rituals. Narendra Modi doesn't. Narendra Modi remains a lower caste in their eyes in every sense of the way, in every sense of the phrase, historically, metaphorically, and even today.
में थोड़ा अलग तरीके से ही फंक्शन करती है। बुक में जिस तरीके से लिखा हुआ है,
GP Singh, Boido is Vaidya caste of Bengalis. Brahmin, Vaidya, Kayastha. Those three from Kolkata are the dominant castes who hold positions of power in every field. India is equal to Hindu saying, why Bengali from Bengal are so interested this type of nonsense stuff which make the state poor do business rather than discussing this type of topic? They are still in the British era. Balgandu thamta. Who's going to let you do business in Bengal? We are not being allowed to do business in Bengal because of the power of socialist discourse. We are countering socialist discourse here. Anand is saying, no, that force folksiness has cultural capital. You can see the transformation of Prashant Kishore, yes. Yeah.
उस तरीके से फंक्शन नहीं करती है, ये आंद्रे बेते कहते हैं। आंद्रे बेते ने श्रीपुरम विलेज में स्टडी किया था। उन्होंने जो भी लिखावट यहाँ पर हम पढ़ रहे हैं कास्ट सिस्टम के रिलेटेड, वो सारे श्रीपुरम।
You know my favorite phrase about Hindutva socialists? Always late to the party, always complaining about the party. See a perfect example of this. Late to the party, complaining about the party. Do business, अपना घर संभालो, मिलियनेयर बनो, फिर पूरा का पूरा पैसा वुमेन्स क्रिकेट को स्पॉन्सर करने में दे दो।
पूरम विलेज के फाइंडिंग्स ही है, वहां पर उन्होंने रिसर्च करके जो ज्ञान इकट्ठा किया था। यहाँ पर उन्होंने देखा था कि जो ब्राह्मण्स है, हम क्या जानते हैं, जो बाकी के थिंकर है वो लोग मानते हैं कि जो ब्राह्मण्स है वो बाकी लोगों से अपने आप को दूर रखने की कोशिश करते हैं, क्योंकि वो लोग रिचुअली हाई होते हैं, यहाँ पर रिचुअली अपने आप को बेहतर दिखाते हैं। इस वजह से वो लोग अपने आप को खुद को दूर रखते हैं बाकी सारे कास्ट से। लेकिन आंद्रे बेते कहते हैं कि उन्होंने श्रीपुरम विलेज में देखा है कि सिर्फ ब्राह्मण्स ही नहीं है जो अपने आप को दूर रखते हैं, जो डिप्रेस्ड क्लास।
GP Singh is asking an important question. GP Singh, nobody knows. This is what people, trads, commies, nobody seems to remember or understand. Jatis can't be retrofitted into varnas. It can't happen because varnas were not meant for this purpose, which is why you don't see hierarchies and caste and casteism in Rigved. Okay. जाति को वर्णा में ठूसने का कोशिश बंद होना चाहिए, नहीं तो हम समझ नहीं पाएंगे जाति इसको।
है जिनको हम अनटचेबल कहते हैं, जिसको आदि द्राविडांस भी कहा जाता है, वो भी अपने आप को खुद को ब्राह्मण से दूर रखते हैं। यहाँ पर थोड़ा अलग है कॉन्सेप्ट। जो आदि द्राविडांस है वो भी अपने आप को ब्राह्मण से दूर रखते हैं, क्योंकि वो लोग सोचते हैं कि अगर वो लोग ब्राह्मण के कांटेक्ट में आएंगे या फिर ब्राह्मण का जो भी तौर तरीका है उसको अगर वो लोग अपनाएंगे तो उनके लिए ये एक मिसफॉर्चून होगा। यानी कि
yes, and Nicholas Dirks talked about this village in South India as well. Not this specific village, but some other village. Maybe this village, I don't remember, but I don't know why it's not extrapolatable to the rest of the country just because it counters the commie narratives. But Nicholas Dirks was pointing out in the 80s about how some lower caste people in southern Indian villages cleanse their fields or the courtyard with gaumutra just because a Brahmin set foot there, okay, or went nearby. That's why same caste, different people claim different varna. Yes, GP Singh, that is the point of Dipankar Gupta's book, which we will discuss pretty soon. What's it called? It's called Interpreting Caste. It argues that where is the hierarchy? The hierarchies are all mixed up and jumbled up in every locality. Okay, the hierarchy is different in every locality. So how are you concluding this one rigid hierarchy? Dasgupta is also Boido, right?
उनके लिए कोई गलत होगा या फिर उनके लिए कोई खराब चीज हो सकती है अगर वो लोग ब्राह्मण्स को फॉलो करें या फिर ब्राह्मण्स के साथ मिक्स हो जाए। इस वजह से आदि द्राविडांस जो है वो अपने आप को सेपरेट ही रखते हैं ब्राह्मण से। इस वजह से जो प्रीवियस जो थिंकर्स थे जैसे घुरे और धूमो, इनका जो कॉन्सेप्ट है ये यहाँ पर अप्लाई नहीं होता है। यहाँ पर जो हमारे कल्चरल व्यू या फिर जो रिचुअल के हिसाब से देखा जाता है वहां पर ब्राह्मण्स को हमेशा सुपीरियर माना जाता है। ब्राह्मण्स को सुपीरियर मानकर ही बाकी सारी सोसाइटी को देखा जाता है। लेकिन यहाँ पर सिर्फ ब्राह्मण्स ही अपने आप को सुपीरियर मानकर बाउंड्री मेंटेन।
Yeah. Now, what Anand Sridhar is pointing out here, that South Indian Brahmins are seen as conduits of soaking up negative karma of the region. Exactly what we discussed in Declan Quigley's research. Remember, which was based in Nepal. तो अब जाके रो आर रंडी रो ना करो कॉमी एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट एंड सोशल साइंटिस्ट के नहीं एक विलेज में करके काहे एक्सट्रापोलेट कर दिए पूरे देश में. तो भाई वहां नेपाल में, यहाँ साउथ इंडिया में सेम चीज कैसे हो रहा है?
नहीं करते हैं. उन्होंने श्रीपुरम विलेज में देखा है कि जो लोअर कास्ट के लोग हैं वो भी अपने आप को अलग रखने की कोशिश करते हैं. वो लोग भी अपने जो बाउंड्री है उसको मेंटेन करने की कोशिश करते हैं. इस वजह से उन्होंने कहा था कि जो संस्कृताइजेशन का कॉन्सेप्ट है, जो हम देखते हैं कि लोअर कास्ट के लोग अपर कास्ट के चीजों को फॉलो करते हैं, उनका रहन सहन को फॉलो करते हैं, ये जो संस्कृताइजेशन का प्रोसेस है ये भी बहुत ही कम हो रहा है. श्रीपुरम विलेज में संस्कृताइजेशन देखी नहीं जाती है और जो लोअर कास्ट के लोग हैं वो अपने एक बाउंड्री मेंटेन करके रहते हैं. खासकर जो लोअर कास्ट के लोग हैं वो अपने आप को एक बाउंड्री में रखते हैं ताकि वो ऊपर के ब्राह्मण से मिक्सअप ना हो.
दिस इज सो ट्रिकी. एक तो है कि by the time André Beteille was probably researching, the incentive structures had flipped, or in that specific locality, in specifically Sripuram village, again, they were the big dogs, and they did not need to emulate the upper classes or castes, because there were no upper classes and castes. They were in fact the upper classes and castes, which is why rigid hierarchy extrapolating on the entire country is impossible in India or in South Asia, and retrofitting jatis into varnas is impossible. GB Singh, yeah, first let Anand explain to you. He will, and also check out our research paper discussions on Declan Quigley's papers. Okay, all of that discusses this only. Nepal, Brahmins who are looked down upon, Brahmins who are treated as dirt because they are ritually seen as the person who takes up all the dirt and evil from all the people around them, or specifically the dead around them, or the kings around them.
उन्होंने देखा था कि ब्राह्मण्स जो है वो भी ब्राह्मण्स के बीच में भी बहुत सारे सब कास्ट हैं जो अपने आप को अनइक्वल ट्रीट करते हैं. यहाँ पर कुछ ब्राह्मण्स ऐसे हैं जो अपने आप को ऊपर का दर्जा देते हैं, कुछ ब्राह्मण्स ऐसे हैं जो निचले वर्ग का दर्जा अपने आप को देखते हैं. इस तरीके से बहुत सारे सब टाइप्स उन्होंने श्रीपुरम विलेज में देखा था. उन्होंने देखा था कि जो ब्राह्मण्स है, ब्राह्मण्स को दो हिस्सों में बांटा गया है. एक है वैदिक ब्राह्मण्स, दूसरा है नॉन वैदिक ब्राह्मण्स. वैदिक ब्राह्मण्स में भी दो टाइप है, Iyengers or Ayers, or non.
By the way, the second last point here.
Vedic Brahmin.
The second last point saying that he also noticed that subcaste among Brahmins have unequal relations. That is probably the core research of Declan Quigley. So I invite all of you to check out our discussions of Declan Quigley's research papers.
Means में भी दो टाइप्स है, भट्टाचारी और आचरकर्स. इस तरीके से इसमें भी हम और भी सब डिविजन देखते हैं. यहाँ पर कहने का ये मतलब है कि जो आंध्र बेटे है उन्होंने श्रीपुरम विलेज में देखा था कि जो हम नॉर्मली वर्ण सिस्टम को पढ़ते हैं, ब्राह्मण क्षत्रिय वैश्य शूद्र, इस तरीके का कास्ट सिस्टम हम नहीं देखते हैं, वर्ण सिस्टम नहीं देखते हैं. हम रियलिटी में
Dasgupta is a very common Vaidya surname. Okay, by the way, check out what the slide shows here. Vedic Brahmins are of two types. Sri Vaishnavs, Iyengars who are Vishnu worshippers. So Sri Vaishnavs, and Smartas, the Ayers, Shiva worshippers, and non-Vedic Brahmins. In Shiva temples, the Bhattacharis, and Vishnu temples, the Acharkars. So is the surname Acharya? No, that's different. So the Bhattacharis are non-Vedic Brahmins. Sengupta is Vaidya. I thought Senguptas were Kayastha, I thought Kshatriya Kayastha.
श्रीपुरम विलेज में देखा था कि जो हम नॉर्मली वर्ण सिस्टम को पढ़ते हैं, ब्राह्मण क्षत्रिय वैश्य शूद्र, इस तरीके का कास्ट सिस्टम हम नहीं देखते हैं, वर्ण सिस्टम नहीं देखते हैं. हम रियलिटी में इससे थोड़ा हटकर देखते हैं. उन्होंने श्रीपुरम विलेज में देखा था कि ब्राह्मण्स के बीच में भी और भी बहुत सारे डिविजन्स हैं. इसको उन्होंने फॉलो किया था. उन्होंने देखा था कि जो आयंगर ब्राह्मण्स है वो अपने आप को रिचुअली प्यूरेस्ट मानते हैं, यानी कि वो अपने आप को ऊपर का दर्जा देते हैं बाकी ब्राह्मण्स के हिसाब से. इस वजह से हर जो कास्ट है उस कास्ट के बीच में भी बहुत सारा कॉन्फ्लिक्ट होता है. यहाँ पर भी कोई अपने आप को ऊपर का दर्जा देता है, कोई अपने आप को निचले वर्ग का दर्जा देता है. हर जगह पर हमें इनइक्वालिटी देखने को मिलता है. इस वजह से अगर हम सिर्फ कास्ट का पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू देखें, कास्ट का पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू.
Anand Sridhar, Academia has forever been a post-truth world. So here, it doesn't matter if it's not completely true. We are finding out what's true in the academia, inside campuses.
व्यू से हम सोसाइटी का जो सोशल स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन है या फिर सोशल स्ट्रक्चर है इसको हम समझ नहीं सकेंगे. हमें
GP Singh, that's only applicable if we are talking about a broad place geography like India, but in specific villages or specific cities, some specific surnames are from some specific castes only. Like if you are talking to a Bengali from Kolkata, if his surname is Dashgupta, he's only and only from the Boiddo caste and nothing else. But whether they are SC or not, those stuff, that stuff is even more convoluted. I know scheduled caste Haldars and I know landowning rich ass Haldars.
कास्ट के साथ साथ क्लास और पावर का भी यूज करना होगा सोशल स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन और सोशल स्ट्रक्चर को समझने के लिए. आंद्रे बेते देखते हैं कि हमारा जो सोसाइटी है वो उस टाइम पीरियड पर धीरे धीरे ट्रांसफॉर्म होना स्टार्ट हो गई थी. वहां पर एजुकेशन लगभग हर जगह पर पहुंचना स्टार्ट हो गई थी. मॉडर्न एजुकेशन के आने के वजह से जो आदि द्राविडन्स यानी कि जो अनटचेबल्स थे वो भी एजुकेशन का एक्सपोजर ले रहे थे. एजुकेशन लेकर वो अपने आप को व्हाइट कॉलर जॉब्स में इन्वॉल्व कर रहे थे. ये सारे जॉब्स के वजह से उनके पास भी थोड़ा बहुत पैसा होने लगा था. इस तरीके से हम देखते हैं कि जो विलेज था, श्रीपुरम विलेज था, वहां पर मार्केट में लोगों का लेन देन बढ़ने लगा. जो ब्राह्मण्स थे वो लोग भी अपनी जमीनें बेच रहे थे आदि द्राविडांस को, और आदि द्राविडांस जो थे वो भी ब्राह्मण्स का जगह अपने खरीद रहे थे. इस तरीके से हम एक ओपन मार्केट का सिचुएशन देखते हैं जहां पर लैंड का डिविजन हो रहा था. लैंड को एक इंसान से दूसरे इंसान में बेचा जा रहा था. यहां पर इस चीज के वजह से बेटे देखते हैं कि जो विलेज में जो स्ट्रक्चर है, विलेज के ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का सिस्टम है, उसमें धीरे धीरे बदलाव आ रही थी. खासकर जो कास्ट का जो स्ट्रक्चर है ये ओपन मार्केट के वजह से धीरे धीरे बदल रही थी. कास्ट के स्ट्रक्चर में भी बदलाव आ रहे था.
अब क्या बात बोल दिया, ओपन मार्केट के वजह से कास्ट स्ट्रक्चर हिल रहे थे.
जो स्ट्रक्चर में हम बदलाव देख रहे थे, यहाँ पर बहुत सारे ऐसे फैक्टर है जिसके वजह से कास्ट के स्ट्रक्चर में हम बदलाव देखते हैं. इसी बदलाव
I don't know the answer, but since you've asked Anand, I'll let him answer. But my guess would be whoever was closer to the British.
के वजह से विलेज का जो पावर स्ट्रक्चर है उसमें भी हम बदलाव देखते हैं. क्योंकि पहले सिर्फ जो हायर कास्ट के लोग थे उनके पास ही पावर था, लेकिन धीरे धीरे जो लोग एक हायर क्लास से बिलोंग करने लगे, यानी कि जिनके पास पैसा होने लगा, जो एक बेटर ऑफ जिंदगी जी रहे थे, इस तरीके के लोगों के पास धीरे धीरे पावर स्ट्रक्चर बदलने लगा और उनके पास भी पावर आने लगा. इस वजह से वो कहते हैं कि कास्ट एलोन इज नॉट
Anand, not Anand, Retroev. See, remember this phrase, power आने लगा. Whenever there is आने लगा and not आ गया, just because you acquired class, you therefore have to acknowledge the existence of caste and not just class. Hence आने लगा, immediately नहीं आया.
पहले सिर्फ जो हायर कास्ट के लोग थे उनके पास,
और यहाँ पे आने लगा एक इंडिविजुअल के लिए भी बोला नहीं जा रहा है, कास्ट को लेकर बोला जा रहा है ओवर डेकेड्स.
बदलाव देखते हैं. इसी बदलाव के वजह से विलेज का जो पावर स्ट्रक्चर है उसमें भी हम बदलाव देखते हैं. क्योंकि पहले सिर्फ जो हायर कास्ट के लोग थे उनके पास ही पावर था, लेकिन धीरे धीरे जो लोग एक हायर क्लास से बिलोंग करने लगे, यानी कि जिनके पास पैसा होने लगा, जो एक बेटर ऑफ जिंदगी जी रहे थे, इस तरीके के लोगों के पास धीरे धीरे पावर स्ट्रक्चर बदलने लगा और उनके पास भी
sorry to interrupt so many times, but Hitesh Ranjan Channal's famous paper, which we have discussed many months back, he points out that I have named that video called How to Buy Your Caste. Okay, do check it out sometimes. It's probably one of the top 5 most fascinating research papers I've ever read. So he points out that he was researching mainly Bengal. So the Tili surname castes and the Teli surname castes, that gets absolutely convoluted in one era of Bengal, because people who gathered some money somehow, or a group of people or some specific families, they immediately hire a random Brahmin to do their accreditation, okay, and declare that I am from a different caste, I'm from a higher caste, and I'm descended from this god, this devta, or that king and stuff. Okay, fake, पूरा का पूरा fake genealogy खरीदने को मिलता था. That is how caste mobility worked. Okay. So if someone argues that no, there was no caste mobility at all in ancient India, even academics don't say that, even commies don't say that. It was rigid forever and ever based on what? Manusmriti. Okay. बड़े भाई लोग खुद मनुस्मृति को हर वक्त बाईपास कर रहे थे because anyone who has read Manusmriti will know it's impossible for a Brahmin to follow the life of Manusmriti. Now तो भाई वहां पे कास्ट को तुम चेंज नहीं कर सकते, ये अगर बोला भी जाता है, there are counter texts like Brahma Puran where Shiva himself says no, caste is not based on birth, it's only on your karma of this birth. But on the other hand, even if you do end up looking at just those specific texts who declare actively that yes, caste is only based on birth, how will you research those individual humans who are flawed, who are corrupt, who want to bypass that and make up their own shit? And so caste mobility happens in reality. It may or may not happen in specific texts. So fake genealogies of Telis and Tilis in Bengal. So what Hitesh Ranjan Sannal finally finds out is that in some villages, Telis and Tilis claim to be the same caste, okay, same jati from the Vaishya Varna. In some villages, Telis say we are higher, Tilis are lower caste. In some villages, Tilis say we are higher caste and Telis are lower caste. And in some places, people who were Tilis have randomly become Telis just by hiring a Brahmin. They were the IAS officers back then, maybe corrupt IAS officers. Which Manusmriti? There are many. Yeah, even if there are many, the things said are more or less the same. And he's right that Iyengars do claim that they are the purest. They are very ritually strict even within the family. If a family member doesn't follow the rules. Alex is saying, I saw news about West Bengal. It's concerning. Can you tell me what the situation is now? It's pretty much the same. By Become a Noble. Retrowave. Yes. Jaat mein agar uthna hai. Hence the phrase Jate Utha exists in Bengali language because many people were doing that. Okay. Ajkal khub jate utheche. So get rich by a Brahmin. And in today's sense, get rich by have an IS Babu declare your surname to be something else, or give you or become an IS Babu yourself. Have so many things that in 2-3 generations or even in the next generation, your kids have a completely different consumption pattern. सर बुद्धिस्ट की ये लेफ्टिस्ट हो जा दिखता है और नव बुद्धिस्ट उसको पकड़ के चलते हैं, वो कितना सच है बोलते हैं सो कॉल्ड ब्राह्मण ने किया. Well, if you believe in non-violence, you will of course end up disappearing. Broken Teeth is saying, in Punjab region, there are many castes which are seen downtrodden who rule the roost now. This happened with resistance against Afghans and Sikhism. Yeah, and check out our discussion of Irfan Habib's paper on caste, okay? He kinds of points these things out as well. Relatively easier to demonize Iyengars and Iyers because Shivan, Murugan and stuff. Oh, although all of them are treated horribly in recent... Acha. Teli versus Teli, yes. In the house, ritually pure family members won't share their stuff, utensils with family who aren't even sons and daughters. Two Shudra brothers used the local Brahmin population to elevate their status to Kshatriya and then elevated their entire group. And remember, no one wants a dismantling of the Jativarna system because they know this is inevitable. They probably consider it inevitable because of its connections with texts. So they thought, they think we are getting it from the text. So we'll just think of it as inevitable. I am saying no, it's inevitable anyway, and not because of the rituals. But in the end, what Irfan Habib pointed out, funnily, in that 1997 paper was that groups randomly, who all of a sudden pretend or declare that no, we don't believe in Jati Varna, we are far removed from this concept, we are leaving this fold. They are later considered to be higher up in the Jati Varna hierarchy. People always look at everything based on hierarchies. Everything is hierarchy around you. You always make decisions based on a bunch of discriminations. Discriminations, Sanskrit translation is Viveka. Viveka, which is also conflated as ethics, morals, okay? Ethics, morals, conscience will lead you to discrimination which benefits you. Let's say a puppy is running towards you and a tiger is running towards you. Won't you keep one away and accept another? Aren't you discriminating against the tiger at that moment? The discrimination always happens. Discrimination leads to these hierarchies. So when will that hierarchy not happen? So uh, since discrimination is so inevitable, hierarchies will always be inevitable.
भी पावर आने लगा। इस वजह से वो कहते हैं कि कास्ट एलोन इज नॉट द ओनली डिटर्मिनेंट ऑफ स्टेटस एंड पावर, यानी कि सिर्फ कास्ट अकेला नहीं है जिसके द्वारा हमारे सोसाइटी में स्टेटस को जज किया जाएगा या फिर किसी का पोजीशन जज किया जाएगा। कास्ट के साथ साथ हमें स्टेटस और पावर को भी देखना होगा कि उसका पोजीशन किस जगह पर है। ये तीनों चीजें मिलकर ही डिसाइड करेगी। बेटे ने फॉलो किया था कि जो ट्रेडिशनल ऑक्यूपेशन है वो धीरे धीरे कम हो रही थी। कास्ट ग्रुप्स अपने आप को जिस ट्रेडिशन में रखने वाले थे, उनको जिस ट्रेडिशन में रहना था वो छोड़कर
which is why I'm saying that let the state not recognize castes. Within 2 generations, you'll see all caste identity go to hell. Okay, you have to write your caste in every document. Stop doing that, and let's see how much you remember stuff. The moment traditional जीविकाs change, all of a sudden everything gets fucked.
अपनाने लगे, दूसरे ऑक्यूपेशन में काम करना स्टार्ट कर रहे थे। जैसे ब्राह्मण्स का मेन काम था प्रीस्टरीहुड का काम, लोगों को पढ़ाना, शिक्षा देना और साथ ही साथ पूजा पाठ करना उनका मेन काम था। लेकिन धीरे धीरे देखा गया कि ओपन मार्केट की वजह से धीरे धीरे जो ब्राह्मण्स थे वो
ओपन मार्केट, so he's unknowingly saying repeatedly that free markets solve casteism.
गवर्नमेंट जॉब्स में अपना हिस्सा देने लगे, वहां पर गवर्नमेंट जॉब्स करने लगे। साथ ही साथ वो लोग एग्रीकल्चर को भी प्रैक्टिस
Anand, yes, but that's not a problem because letting go of current caste identities will lead to Hindu unity.
करना स्टार्ट कर दिए थे। इस तरीके का बदलाव हम कास्ट के ग्रुप्स में, अलग अलग ग्रुप्स में भी देख सकते हैं, जहां पर जॉब्स के वजह से लोग एक दूसरे के साथ घुल मिल रहे थे और कास्ट स्ट्रक्चर में भी बहुत ज्यादा बदलाव आ रही थी। इन सारी चीजों के वजह से कास्ट, क्लास एंड पावर में जो सिस्टम था, पहले जो इंटर रिलेशन हम देखते थे, उसमें बहुत ज्यादा बदलाव हम आज के टाइम पर देखते हैं, क्योंकि पुराना टाइम पीरियड पर इतना ज्यादा जॉब नहीं था, एजुकेशन सिस्टम नहीं था। वहां पर कास्ट, क्लास और पावर का जो सिचुएशन।
Shit, this guy is saying everything I have been saying based on the things I concluded myself based on my reading of 20-30 research papers. Holy shit. Yes, the number of opportunities were less because it was not free market capitalism. There was no industrialization, or whatever industrialization happened in the times of Chanakya, all that had been dismantled and India didn't keep up.
था वो एक हार्मोनी,
which is why the Libertarian Party of India is saying one way to get rid of reservations is make reservations even irrelevant, like in Singapore. It's not for everyone, but it's largely become irrelevant for a whole bunch of people, but the state has to stop recognizing castes.
सिचुएशन पे था, लेकिन धीरे धीरे सोसाइटी बदलती गई और सोसाइटी में बहुत सारे बदलाव ऐसे आते गए जिसके वजह से कास्ट, क्लास और पावर का जो नोशन है वो धीरे धीरे और भी ज्यादा बदलता गया। यहाँ पर बहुत सारे ऐसे फैक्टर है जिसके वजह से इसमें बदलाव हम देखते हैं, जैसे एजुकेशन में ग्रोथ, सेकुलराइजेशन का प्रोसेस, फिर ऑक्यूपेशनल चेंज, माइग्रेशन, पॉलिटिक्स, डेमोक्रेसी, ये सारे चीजों के वजह से, ये सारे ऐसे फैक्टर्स है जिसके वजह से हम देखते हैं कि कास्ट, क्लास और पावर में अब बदलाव आ रही है, खासकर जो कास्ट।
Anand, I've heard there's a reservation for Muslims and stuff in some ways. Jyotiraditya is saying stop writing caste in documents, free market and industrialization. Yeah, but it can't happen on an individual level activism basis. Activism way of doing things. Okay, like you tie your shoelace with your janeu, or you write just the first letter of your surname and don't use the rest of the surname. That stuff is not going to help. State has to stop recognizing. State has to stop asking you to write your caste. Then the real fun will begin.
कास्ट सिस्टम है उसका जो स्ट्रक्चर है वो बदल रहा है। यहाँ पर लोग एक दूसरे के साथ मिक्सअप हो रहे हैं एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूट में, साथ ही साथ जहां पर जॉब किया जा रहा है वहां पर भी एक दूसरे के साथ मिल रहे हैं। इस वजह से लोगों के बीच में वैल्यूज का भी एक्सचेंज हो रहा है। यहाँ पर जजमानी सिस्टम के डिक्लाइन के साथ साथ जो एक हायरार्किकल ग्रेडेशन था कास्ट का, वो भी खत्म हो गया था, क्योंकि जजमानी सिस्टम में एक ग्रुप होता था जजमान, दूसरा होता था कामिन्स। यहाँ पर जजमानी सिस्टम के खत्म होने के बाद इस तरीके का कोई ग्रुप नहीं रहा था और कोई हायर कास्ट, कोई हायर ग्रुप और कोई लोअर ग्रुप नहीं था। इस वजह से हम देखते हैं कि जिसके पास
Okay, Anand, I don't know about this, but the last day that Libertarian Party of India came on our podcast, They said that it's been made irrelevant in Singapore, and they received a lot of pushback on this, saying that no, Muslims have reservation and stuff.
जितना ज्यादा पैसा है, जिसके पास जितना चेंज, माइग्रेशन, पॉलिटिक्स, डेमोक्रेसी, ये सारे चीजों के वजह से, ये सारे ऐसे फैक्टर्स हैं जिसके वजह से हम देखते हैं कि कास्ट, क्लास और पावर में अब बदलाव आ रही है। खासकर जो कास्ट सिस्टम है उसका जो स्ट्रक्चर है वो बदल रहा है। यहाँ पर लोग एक दूसरे के साथ मिक्सअप हो रहे हैं एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूट में, साथ ही साथ जहां पर जॉब किया जा रहा है वहां पर भी एक दूसरे के साथ मिल रहे हैं। इस वजह से लोगों के बीच में वैल्यूज का भी एक्सचेंज हो रहा है। यहाँ पर जजमानी सिस्टम के डिक्लाइन के साथ साथ जो एक हायरार्किकल ग्रेडेशन था कास्ट का, वो भी खत्म हो गया था, क्योंकि जजमानी सिस्टम में एक ग्रुप होता था जजमान, दूसरा होता था कामिन्स। यहाँ पर जजमानी सिस्टम के खत्म होने के बाद इस तरीके का कोई ग्रुप नहीं रहा था और कोई हायर कास्ट, कोई हायर ग्रुप और कोई लोअर ग्रुप नहीं था। इस वजह से हम देखते हैं कि जिसके पास जितना ज्यादा पैसा है, जिसके पास जितना ज्यादा लैंड है, वो ही ज्यादातर पावरफुल होता है और साथ ही साथ उसके पास स्टेटस भी ज्यादा रहता है। इस वजह से कास्ट का जो ग्रेडेशन है वो भी दिन ब दिन उसमें भी गिरावट आती।
I don't see how a Dalit can have a Chaudhary or Roy surname unless they are completely fake Dalits and got their certification in the 50s or 60s by some shenanigans. But Chaudharys and Roys are always either Kshatriya Kayastha or Brahmins. Roys so definitely always Kshatriya Kayastha. Chaudharys can be both Kshatriya Kayastha or Brahmins.
है और स्ट्रक्चर में हम बदलाव देखते हैं। एंड्रे बेते ने ऑब्जर्व किया था कि ये जो पावर है, पावर में भी बहुत ज्यादा शिफ्ट देखी जाती है, क्योंकि यहाँ पर जो पहले डोमिनेंट कास्ट थी, एक जगह पर जो भी कास्ट एक डोमिनेंट कास्ट था वो धीरे धीरे बदलता गया, फिर वहां पर और एक कास्ट आया जो उस जगह को डोमिनेट कर रहा था, वहां पर डोमिनेंट कास्ट बना। इसी तरीके से कास्ट स्ट्रक्चर में भी बदलाव हम देख रहे थे। वहां पर बहुत सारे अलग अलग, खासकर जो पंचायत और पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज है, इन सारे चीजों के इन्फ्लुएंस के वजह से, इन सारे इंस्टीट्यूट के इन्फ्लुएंस के वजह से लोगों में बदलाव आ रही थी और कास्ट के स्ट्रक्चर में बदलाव आ रही थी, क्योंकि पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज अपने फायदे के लिए लोगों को मोबिलाइज कर रही थी। जो लोअर कास्ट के लोग हैं उनको भी इंपॉर्टेंस देने लगी थी, साथ ही साथ पंचायत में भी अलग अलग लोगों का इन्फ्लुएंस होने लगा। इस तरीके से हम
Oh, and Rajbangshis are considered Dalits, right? So maybe for those reasons, or are they considered SCs who claim to be Kshatriya but are SC? Yes. नाम में ही है राजवंश, राजवंशा, किंग से डिसेंडेंट है, मगर शेड्यूल कास्ट भी है।
देखते हैं कि जो कास्ट, क्लास एंड पावर का नोशन है उसमें भी बहुत ज्यादा बदलाव देखी जाती है। अब आंद्रे बेते का जो कास्ट, क्लास एंड पावर का कॉन्सेप्ट है, यहाँ पर हमने क्या देखा है, जो कास्ट है, कास्ट में हम बहुत सारे बदलाव देख रहे थे और इसी बदलाव के वजह से
No, retroive. People with Kayasthas with Chaudhary and Sen surnames, they always pointed out that they are Kshatriya Kayasthas.
हम अलग अलग क्लासेस का फॉर्मेशन देख रहे हैं सोसाइटी है, जहां पर किसी के पास ज्यादा पैसा है वो एक क्लास से बिलोंग कर रहा है, और जिसके पास कम पैसा है वो और एक क्लास से बिलोंग कर रहा है। इस वजह से सोसाइटी में क्लास भी इक्वली इंपॉर्टेंट होने लगा। साथ ही साथ हम पंचायत और पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज के वजह से पावर स्ट्रक्चर में भी बदलाव देखते हैं। बहुत सारे पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज में जो
इंसेंटिव स्ट्रक्चर्स,
पिछले वर्ग के लोग हैं वो नेता बन रहे थे। इस तरीके से कास्ट, क्लास और पावर, ये तीनों चीजें इंटर रिलेटेड है किसी भी सोसाइटी में। अगर सोशल स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन की बात करें या फिर सोशल स्ट्रक्चर में बदलाव की बात करें, ये तीनों चीजें इक्वली।
This is what I was saying in the beginning, that André Beteille or this guy was saying that see, people don't emulate the upper castes, upper classes of the society in that place. That's so interesting. Well, the only time humans don't do that is if they are in fact the big dogs in that locality. उनके चाचा विधायक है और वो आंद्रे बेती को पता नहीं था. In that specific village, they were the highest ritually purest or people with the most power. Therefore, they didn't emulate anyone. Otherwise, whatever the incentives give you, you will do that. जब अपर कास्ट बनना इंसेंटिव था, तब सब लोगों ने जिनके पास पॉसिबल हुआ, ब्राह्मण्स हायर करके फेक जीनियोलॉजी बना लिया कि हम अपर कास्ट है। अभी सेम चीज करेंगे लोअर कास्ट डिक्लेयर करने को खुद को, ठीक है। मॉरल्स, वर्डल्स, टेक्स्ट, स्क्रिप्चर, सब गया तेल लेने सबके लिए।
इंपॉर्टेंट है। हम आज के टाइम पीरियड पर भी आंद्रे बेते का ये जो काम है, ये कास्ट, क्लास और पावर का कॉन्सेप्ट है, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करता है हमारी सोसाइटी को समझने के लिए। अब देखते हैं आंद्रे बेते ने एग्रीडियन स्ट्रक्चर के बारे में किस तरीके का बात बताई है। अब यहाँ पर एग्रीडियन स्ट्रक्चर यानी कि गांव में किस तरीके का क्लास का फॉर्मेशन है, इसके बारे में यहाँ पर हम बातें करेंगे।
So the guy who approved SC status for Rajbanshis, what did he think of the Varna system? Kshatriyas are lower caste now. Boishalidi is saying, feel the discussion on caste has increased in the last 10 years. Somehow feel the discussion is coming more from elite academia. It has always come from the elite academia. But now we are going to get into the dirt and bring out these nice stuff. अभी तक क्या था कि right wingers didn't want to get down in the gobar and fight this mudslinging, gobar slinging battle out. This is a gobar wrestling tournament, and we are here to stay. Now, the comment we found in a live chat about 15 minutes back, the guy saying, what, this is all British era stuff, what's the point of reading this? Bengalis are stuck reading this, that's why they are doing this. Just do business. भाई बिजनेस करो, टेक करो, सोसाइटी तो डिस्कोर्स ही चलाएगा. डिस्कोर्स तो सोशियोलॉजी और एंथ्रोपोलॉजी, सोशल साइंस ही जनरेट करेगा. तो तुम मान लो कि तुम जान के ये फैक्ट एक्नॉलेज करके जिंदगी बिताओगे, या इग्नोरेंस में बिजनेस करो, बिजनेस करके फिर बाद में कंप्लेन करो कि व्हाई हैव दे सच अ ग्रास्प ऑन द नैरेटिव. सिस्टम उनका काहे है? क्योंकि सिस्टम में घुसने का टाइम था, या फिर सिस्टम जब बनाया जा रहा था, तब तुम अपना बिजनेस कर रहे थे. तो भाई बिजनेस के आसपास ये सब भी कंसिडर करो कि डिस्कोर्स में ही सब होता है. कोई ऑब्जेक्टिव मॉडल्स आसपास तुम्हारा नहीं घूम रहा है. क्या तुमको खिलाया जा रहा है वही तुम खा के डायलॉग झाड़ रहे हो.
आंद्रे बेते के हिसाब से हम जो क्लास है, क्लास को कल्चरल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से समझते हैं. हमें कल्चरल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से क्लास को समझना है. एग्रीरियन क्लास जो होता है, इसको अगर हम समझेंगे तो सिर्फ ओनरशिप क्राइटेरिया से नहीं समझ सकेंगे. ओनरशिप क्राइटेरिया यानी कि किसके पास कितना ज्यादा जमीन है, इसके हिसाब से हम सिर्फ इनको नहीं समझ सकते हैं. इसके लिए हमें दूसरा और एक क्राइटेरिया यूज करना होगा, वो है लैंड यूज क्राइटेरिया. यानी कि ओनरशिप, किसके पास लैंड है, साथ ही साथ कौन लैंड किस तरीके से जमीन को यूज कर रहे हैं, इसको भी हमें देखना होगा. ये दोनों चीजों को हम मिक्स कर ही एग्रीरियन क्लास को समझ सकते हैं. एंड्रे बेते के हिसाब से रूरल जो स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन का पैटर्न है, इसमें दो इंपॉर्टेंट टर्म्स है. एक है लैंड कंट्रोल और दूसरा है लैंड मैनेजमेंट. यहाँ पर कौन लैंड को कंट्रोल कर रहा है, ये भी हमें देखना है, और साथ ही साथ लैंड को किस तरीके से मैनेज किया जा रहा है, इसको भी हमें फोकस में रखना है. ये सारे चीजों को उन्होंने ध्यान में रखते हुए उन्होंने कहा था कि ये जो हमारी सोसाइटी है, एग्रीरियन स्ट्रक्चर है, यहाँ पर 3 पैटर्न के द्वारा हम प्रोडक्टिव ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को समझ सकते हैं. यानी कि जो भी जमीन है, जमीन में जो भी प्रोडक्टिव ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हो रही है, इसको हम 3 पैटर्न में समझ सकते हैं. एक है फैमिली लेबर, फिर हायर्ड लेबर और टेनेंसी. फैमिली लेबर यानी कि जो भी लोग फैमिली को यूज करके अपने जमीन में काम कर रहे हैं, यहाँ पर इसको कहा जाता है फैमिली लेबर. फिर अगर कोई दूसरों से हायर करके, यानी कि दूसरों को अपने जमीन में काम कराता है, उसको कहा जाता है हायर्ड लेबर. और तीसरा जो पैटर्न है वो है टेनेंसी. यानी कि कोई भी एक इंसान जब जमीन भाड़े पर लेकर उसको खेती करेगा, उसको कहा जाता है टेनेंसी. इन 3 तरीके का उन्होंने प्रोडक्टिव ऑर्गेनाइजेशन देखी थी. यहाँ पर लोग अलग अलग पैटर्न के जरिए अपने लैंड के ऊपर काम कराते हैं या फिर दूसरों के लैंड के ऊपर काम करते हैं.
And this is what people must also keep in mind as a context, that Anand was pointing out here that there were 7 castes in Maurya times. It kept changing with time and geography. Then the main castes were the nerdy, isolated Brahmins, landowners, and everyone else. So you see, why then more castes later on? ऐसा तो नहीं है कि मॉडर्न टाइम से ब्रिटिश आने तक बहुत सिग्निफिकेंट कुछ बढ़िया चेंजेस हो गया, रेवोल्यूशन हो गया इंडस्ट्री में, इसलिए बहुत बहुत सारे प्रोफेशंस आ गए. अगर वैसा होता भी है, अगर वैसा नहीं भी होता है, the number of castes were going to happen, or going to increase anyway, because after all this is a complex society. This is not white pale rice we are talking about. This is a complex, diverse, rich society, rich in the metaphorical sense. So when there's a complex society, it's a very advanced society. It's gone on for countless millennia. That society is going to have such advanced, such insanely complicated hierarchies. That's the fact of the matter. We are neither good or bad for having these things.
ये जो एग्रीरियन स्ट्रक्चर है, इस एग्रीरियन स्ट्रक्चर के बारे में में बात की थी आंद्रे बेते ने। अब एग्रीडियंट स्ट्रक्चर के बहुत सारे अलग-अलग फॉर्म्स हैं, बहुत सारे अलग-अलग थिंकर हैं जिन्होंने अलग-अलग तरीके से एग्रीडियंट स्ट्रक्चर को डिफाइन किया था। लेकिन यहाँ पर आंद्रे बेते का जो भी
No, no, Brahmins were never insults. They got it from Buddhism.
कॉन्सेप्ट है, आप लोग थोड़ा ध्यान से रखिएगा। यहाँ पर सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट जो बात है वो है ओनरशिप क्राइटेरिया और लैंड यूज क्राइटेरिया। ये दो क्राइटेरिया के बेसिस पे उन्होंने एग्रीरियन क्लास को डिवाइड किया था। तो आज के क्लास में हमने कोशिश की है कि आंद्रे बेते के रिलेटेड जो भी कॉन्सेप्ट है वो हमें क्लियर हो जाए। खास करके एग्जाम के लिए हमारे लिए सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है कास्ट सिस्टम, यानी कि जहां पर हमने कास्ट, क्लास और पावर का कॉन्सेप्ट देखा है। यहाँ से बहुत ज्यादा क्वेश्चन आते हैं और हमने एक चार्ट देखी थी। अगर आप चार्ट को भी याद कर लोगे तो आपको एग्जाम में बहुत अच्छे मार्क मिल सकते हैं और पूरी की पूरी जो भी टॉपिक हमने पढ़ी है वो उस चार्ट से ही आप लोगों की क्लियर हो जाएगी।
Now we are going to listen to the man himself, Professor André Beteille, Rajiv Mehrotra.
Philosophy. Hello, and welcome to Mindscapes, a series of conversations with men and women whose ideas, vision, and philosophy define our contemporary world. My guest today is one of India's preeminent sociologists. His work is distinguished by his commitment to comparative sociology and an emphasis on the field view.
That's the only kind of sociology I'm ready to accept. Comparative sociology. Comparison is the mother of clarity. Nothing should be analyzed in vacuum.
As opposed to a book view. He has refused to accept a privileged conception of society. He's
From History of Sociologist, DJ.
lectured at universities around the world, at Cambridge, at the London School of Economics. He was one of the founders of the Sociology Department at the University of Delhi.
Oh, power.
He writes extensively in the popular media, making accessible complex sociological ideas to a larger community. I'm delighted to welcome Professor André Beteille. Welcome, Professor Beteille.
Thank you very much.
What do you see as the
Retrowave. What time was this, do you think? This is when the 1991 revolution, the disruption has recently happened. That's when you see these things. Anya Datta's movies don't happen if Buddhadev Bhattacharya doesn't do those things. Right now, we are in dire need of a 1991 2.0, and nothing of that sort is happening because we are waiting for Western-style capitalism to go away, Sanatan economics to come up. And since all of this was happening, therefore, Congress had kind of decided that, okay, let's move on from caste. Hence, these people were coming up, being having spotlights thrown on them. Dipankar Gupta, Irfan Habib, André Beteille saying similar things. And then all of a sudden, when BJP comes to power, caste is back. And Irfan Habib's, that part of his research on caste is completely ignored, ostracized, eliminated, disappears from academia because they need to fight other battles. DJ is saying, India has poorer per capita GDP from most poor countries in Africa. Isn't leaving socialism too? PS, I'm isn't leaving socialism too quick? I didn't get your question. India has poorer per capita GDP from most poor countries in Africa. Isn't leaving socialism too quick? Can you elaborate a little or reframe the question? বাংলাতেও জিজ্ঞেস করতে পারো.
role of a sociologist? You have written extensively to suggest that it is not a sociologist's function to re-engineer society, but in a sense to hold up a mirror to society.
I really think that the idea of sociology as a policy science is not very promising. I mean, people have tried it out. I think in the earlier years of independence, there was a great deal of enthusiasm for shaping our rural communities, for instance, by having expert opinion from sociologists.
He writes extensively in the popular media. You have written a bit there. Welcome, Professor Beteille.
Thank you very much.
What do you see as the role of a sociologist? You have written extensively to suggest that it is not a sociologist's function to re-engineer society, but in a sense to hold up a mirror to society.
I really think that the idea of sociology as a policy science is not very promising. I mean, people have tried it out. I think in the earlier years of independence,
those were the days, at least, when people pretended to not do policy work, but it ended up being ended up impacting policy anyway. Then came the time, I think 90s onwards, and especially with finally it ended with stuff like wokeism and stuff, where academia's sole job became to push policy. Only thing they started doing was activism and policy pushing, and of course only one kind of policy pushing and one kind of activism. And it was not meant to be that way. They were supposed to have sort of a facade of distance from power and policy. Okay, they were supposed to be the isolated Brahmins. They were supposed to be the isolated nerds who just do research for research's sake. And then that gets corrupted and they start influencing kings. Where have you heard this story before, guys? See, this is the inevitability of mankind. This is the inevitable corruption of mankind, human societies in general. And should it even be called corruption if it's not something out of the ordinary? Corruption means apabhramsa, a distortion. This is the goddamn feature, not the bug.
The idea of sociology as a policy science.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, let's take DJ's question. India per capita GDP is poorer than Africa's. In this situation, can capitalism be accepted? Oh my God. DJ, you clarified in the previous comment that you are not socialist, but you are thinking exactly like a socialist. Where do I start? See, name a poor country which has benefited from socialism. Name one. Today, all the countries that are poor, none of them have free market. None of them have capitalism. Why aren't they improving? Name one. Why is Africa not improving? Do they have free markets or capitalism? Do they have a dearth of freebies? They get the freebies of the entire fucking world. They get billions and billions of dollars worth of free stuff. How are they poor? Okay. Capitalism is not for a society that has already become rich. If someone becomes rich because of socialism, why the fuck would they get to capitalism then? Capitalism is for lifting people out of poverty. And that's what it's been doing the world around in whatever degree is possible. Yes, Sudan also doesn't have basic amenities. Africa doesn't have basic amenities, who are getting billions of dollars of free cash. Why? Why don't they have basic amenities? Why does USA have basic amenities? And what are USA's basic amenities? It's a bad car, it's a bad TV, it's a bad room heater, it's a bad house. Do we have that kind of basic amenities by doing socialism? Our homeless people are living homeless only. You'll make a goddamn public funded flat society for them. They'll sell that or give that on lease and move away. Give that up on rent. So what will happen if capitalism happens and we can't have basic amenities? Right now you don't have basic amenities because of socialism, corruption, government babus, all of which are products of socialism, and free stuff which you can't afford. Okay, let's say I want to give you this pen for free. Okay, I want to give you this pen for free. Okay, I'm the government. I want to give you this pen for free. Let's say it costs 20 rupees. But there's someone who needs to handle your paperwork. I have to pay him. Right? And I have to take money from everyone else to fund this 20 rupee pen. So what does that pen end up costing? More than 20 rupees to the entire society. In the end, you won't probably receive it because of the corruption of the babus who don't have accountability. They are third-party non-stakeholders in the conversation. The deal is not happening between me as a person and you as a person. It's happening between a faceless entity called the government and his lackeys, the babus, and you. Amar capitalism, American medical expense. Yeah, America's medical system, healthcare system is the worst of all worlds, and that has been screwed because of socialism, not because of capitalism. And if you can afford things and there's an abundance of everything, that's a capitalist society, nothing else. Ash Ketchum is saying, Neeraj bro, most of the people are brainwashed and indoctrinated by 5 stages of capitalism by Karl Marx. Apparently America is it's been in the last stage since 1776. If capitalism happens, hardworking people will get good life for their work. Great cities and good life is what else? Yes. Yes, insurance-based healthcare. That's what's screwing USA. Okay, let's continue with Mr. André Beteille's views?
Is not very promising. I mean, people have tried it out. I think in the earlier.
Professor Beteille.
Thank you very much.
What do you see as the role of a sociologist? You have written extensively to suggest that it is not a sociologist's function to re-engineer society, but in a sense to hold up a mirror to society.
I really think that the idea of sociology as a policy science is not very promising. I mean, people have tried it out. I think in the earlier years of independence, there was a great deal of enthusiasm for shaping our rural communities, for instance, by having expert opinion from sociologists. I won't say that they have no role to play at all in the making of policy, but that doesn't really interest me very much. What interests me, and what has always interested me as a teacher, is clarifying issues, helping people to understand a little better the nature of the circumstances under which they live, the choices that are available to them, and to try to reason with them that all choices are not available to human beings at any particular turn of events. Because I believe that ultimately societies change through the actions of the members of those societies themselves. And therefore, if they are better informed, then they will be better equipped for changing that society. And I think that the sociologist has a role to play in revealing to them, holding up a mirror, as you put it, before them, as to what is possible under these circumstances and what is unrealistic.
You've also held that sort of the lessons of history, as it were, we need to recognize and learn not just from its successes,
Yes.
but also from the possibilities
Yes.
of failure
Yes.
that it holds out.
Yes, I think so. I remember writing something of that kind. Probably at that point of time, what I had in mind was the Soviet experience. And it was, I was an undergraduate in Calcutta in the 50s. And if you were an undergraduate in Calcutta in the 50s, then you struggled with the idea of Marxism. I was never a Marxist myself, but most of my cleverest fellow students were Marxists and became left intellectuals in course of time. I was always fascinated. I never believed the stories about the little father, how compassionate Stalin was, and how everything that, Sidney Webb's famous comment, "I've seen the future and it works." I was a skeptic. If you ask me to explain why I didn't believe that, I might find it difficult to do so, but I never really did. But as it unraveled, it became more and more clear that my instincts were right. And I think that we mustn't forget about the nature of the experiment in social engineering that was tried out in the Soviet Union, and then tried out initially, at least, with much good faith, and then it soured. And I think that we must keep all that in mind when we are sort of enthusiastic about formulas that will change everything and bring in the brave new world.
With sort of, let's say, the decline of the fascination amongst the intelligentsia with China, the Soviet Union, and Marxism, it's been replaced in some ways by a new fascination to, on the one hand, capitalism, globalization, and
Yeah, Anand, the Indian system is kind of it works with the bad government hospitals and the private hospitals for those who can afford it. But one rule change I really want is that government servants, public servants, and at least health ministers and stuff, or any minister who, I think anyone who has anything to do with drawing salary from the public, it has to be a rule for them that they will have to do their treatments in government hospitals. That can't change. Their kids will have to go to government schools, and they will have to go to government hospitals. That can't work both ways.
what kind of risks?
Yeah, it's the same everywhere, and that's what people don't realize, that USA is so bad, Western style capitalism is so bad. Interestingly, not only does everyone go to USA for everything, even their healthcare industry, People run to USA whenever possible, whenever they can afford it. They go to USA only.
To you as a sociologist, what do you see that doing for and in India?
I think that there are quite serious risks of misrepresenting and misunderstanding our predicament.
Nice.
I would say that if one were to look at the Indian context, I would say that in the 50s and 60s, there was a great deal of faith in the state, what the state would do through intelligent, rational economic planning, and what socialism could achieve. And certainly the best of the intellectuals I worked with in the Delhi School of Economics, K.N. Raj, Shukumar Chakravarti, Amartya Sen, I think they all believed that rational human action could guide the destinies of this society through some kind of planning and social engineering. Today, there is the possibility of swinging to the opposite extreme and believing that the market will provide all the answers to our problems. As a sociologist, I've always felt that the state is very important and the market is also very important. But there are very many other things that are also important, and we shouldn't lose sight of those other things. And these are the institutions of society, including the kind of institution in which I have spent all my working life. Our universities, for instance, our hospitals, our libraries, our laboratories, all these institutions, I don't think that the working of these institutions can be guaranteed either by having a very good state or by letting the market take hold of these things. I think that we have to be much more careful about nurturing these institutions, protecting
So Achanakyan minarchist state.
their autonomy and seeing that they are able to function in an effective way. And I don't think that the market provides the answer to all our problems. I don't think so at all. I think we'll make a very serious mistake if we believe that we can put the market in our hearts in the place in which was held by the state in the first 10 years of Nehru's prime ministership.
To what degree do you think that it is in fact possible and that India might be able to resist these sort of this sweep of, for want of a better word, liberalization, globalization?
Well, I mean, I'm a long-term optimist, although I may be a short-term pessimist. I'm not terribly happy with the way in which this enthusiasm for the market has taken hold of the minds of the brightest of our young people. But I think that I don't think that we should be too afraid of globalization. I think that we have
So true liberal Indian, just one who hesitates, who thinks twice, thrice before speaking, who doesn't hyperbolize. That's all. This is the kind of academics we've always needed. This is the kind of stuff we pay academics for.
We have traditions which go back very far in time. We have a very vibrant and a very resilient culture with all its difficulties and all its problems. I don't think that there is really any serious risk of our traditions and our culture being swept away by MTV or whatever it is that people feel afraid of. So I deplore much of this on aesthetic grounds, but I wouldn't try to oppose it through some kind of political action. I think that will be counterproductive.
Oh,
Another sort of emerging, shall we say, to keep using the same phrase, a privileged community perhaps, is the Hindutva brigade.
Yes.
Sort of a feeling again in a more affirmative way perhaps, that this represents a
holy
unique,
shit.
model which is in some ways superior to others.
When is this from? It's not from 2 years ago, right? When is this interview from? Wait, let me see if the description mentions this. Because this looks very old. It's been uploaded 2 years back. Archival interview. When is this from? This is fascinating. They're already worried about Hindutva. Let me see. So this guy Rajiv Mehrotra used to do interviews repeatedly. Let's see, where are his interviews? When are his interviews from? Can't find anywhere. Definitely pre-2000, right? Anyway.
Liz, how do you feel and see that unfolding?
I am somewhat disturbed by it. I'm always disturbed by arguments about the uniqueness of India. Let the rest of the world go its own way. We will go our way. I think that that's not a very sensible idea, and I don't think that's a very Indian idea at all. I think you know. I mean, if you look at our history, our recent history, our medieval and ancient history, this is a society which, more than any other society, has benefited by taking in elements of culture from all over the world. You know, there's
Yes, except taking in those who wanted to end this party.
very outstanding.
India is a party. We're having fun. Someone has joined the party who wants to finish the party. That though can't be accepted, sir.
Indian writer and anthropologist called Iravati Karve. And Iravati Karve always made this point. And she was not only a great anthropologist, she was also a Sanskritist, she was a Marathi writer. She always said that the great characteristic of Indian civilization has been the principle of accretion. We take things from outside and we use them in our way. And I think
Yes, you can be a foodie, but you can't consume fucking poison.
that we will continue to do that despite
Despite
the proponents of Hindutva, much of which comes out of a sort of feeling of helplessness, of being
No.
unable to cope with the modern world.
Yes.
And you see this, if I may say so, this fear of the modern world, this fear of globalization. You see this very strongly in some of the Islamic countries. And I'm afraid Hindutva,
Holy shit.
I may say so, this fear of the modern world, this fear of globalization. You see this very strongly in some of the Islamic countries. And I'm afraid Hindutva, in many ways, takes as its model some of the worst features of Islamic fundamentalism.
Why do you think you mentioned?
Yeah. Rightly so, proudly so. We are countering a very specific kind of problem. We have to kind of reflect their sensibilities. Kakade. Bhushalidhi is saying, if the name Hindutva had been substituted by Indiktva or Civilizationatva, Kaisanba, would it have faced lesser vehement opposition? Absolutely, yes. তুমি বলো যে capitalism Indian politics allow করবে? DJ is asking, will Indian politics allow capitalism? No. Right now, the way it is, no. So we'll have to create a situation wherein they feel incentivized to do capitalism. He's not really wrong. At the time, RSS VHP were quite fundamentalist. It has evolved. As Savarkar said, I'm Hindu because you are Muslim. Yes. Hindutva se problem hai, but cannot call out. Yeah, he's actually calling out Islamic fundamentalism. He's saying that Hindutva is as bad as Islamic, or taking some aspects of Islamic fundamentalism. This has been a straw man against Hinduism in Saffron Islam. Yeah. Basically, the word Hindu is a
Short while ago, the institutions, you mentioned education, you mentioned healthcare. Why do you think that these have not really sufficiently figured on the national agenda? Why is it that during elections, political parties don't make an issue of what they're going to do with healthcare, what they're going to do with education, and what seem to us to be sort of fundamental services, almost fundamental rights? These remain issues in the...
A reminder for any commie watching this, just because you declare something a fundamental right doesn't mean it becomes an inherent moral fundamental right as a human. Someone still has to make it, someone has to learn the craft of making it, someone has to sell it to you, someone has to bring it to you. So remember what Shekhar Gupta said, Arey, my glasses are so fucked since Holi. Two of my friends completely almost destroyed my glasses. So anyway, I'm going on fidgeting for that reason. Fuck this. This is so screwed. So Shekhar Gupta said that by the time UPA 2 went out of power, the only thing left for Sonia Gandhi to declare a right was Indian cricket's right to not lose matches against Pakistan, or the right not to have rains destroy or disrupt the match whenever there's an India-Pakistan match going on, stuff like that. So no matter what you declare a fundamental right, it's not a fundamental right unless there are incentive structures in society for it to come up, it to appear out of thin air in front of you.
US presidential elections, but they're not issues on our agendas.
Yep. Yep. No, that's true. And not only are they not issues in our political agenda, but they seem to be receding from our political agenda, from the list of issues on our political agenda. If you go back to the 1950s, I think the political leaders were much more concerned with this kind of thing. But what has happened, I mean, as I see it, is that the politics of mobilization has overtaken all other forms of politics. And mobilization now...
No, see, syndicate as a concept, as a term, is not a problem. The problem is whether it happens legally or illegally. That's the entire game. If it's an anarcho-capitalist situation, there's no government and stuff, then yes, then let anything go. But when there is a strong, so-called strong state for which we pay thousands in taxes, the entire country pays millions in taxes, in that society, in that situation, in that country, something cannot be legal when other people do another thing illegally. When you do an illegal thing and then call it just capitalism or libertarianism and stuff, like some of our viewers say that Bihar is anarcho-capitalist or libertarian because everyone has fun their own way. That's not free market. That's not capitalism, because all of that is happening as a form of corruption. It's a distortion. It's a break away from what's legal, and that illegality is being allowed by some very powerful people. Proximity to power works there. Proximity to power is even that is inevitable, but proximity to power to get away with doing illegal things, whereas some other people won't get away with it, or some other people won't get away with it just because they don't have that proximity to power. So since that puts so many people at a disadvantage, that you are not ready to break the rules, this guy is ready to break the rules, he becomes the winner. What kind of equal opportunity is that? Equal opportunity is one of the core fundamentals of free markets.
Now, on the basis of caste and community, basically. Perhaps, I mean, this may sound as we needed to go through all of this. I think that one mustn't forget that this is and has been for 1,000 years the most hierarchical society in the world, in which large sections of the population were marginalized, stigmatized, and excluded from whatever was worthwhile in social life. So some spaces have to be found for them. And, you know, I mean, we have a constitution which is, if I may use the phrase, the most democratic constitution in the world. The equality provisions in the Constitution of India are stronger than the equality provisions in the American, much stronger than the equality provisions in the American Constitution. So we have a constitution which gives a very prominent place to equality and democracy, and yet we have a society which is so profoundly hierarchical, and therefore transforming. You know, this program is called Mindscapes, but you know, transforming the mindset which has been permeated by the principle of hierarchy for 2,000 years into one where equality has more room for play is really a difficult venture. But I think that we have taken the right steps in moving forward by means of democratic politics, despite all the noise and the turmoil of our present political system.
What and where do you think these the catalysts for change might come from? Does it come from visionary leadership that crisis or possibility might throw up? Does it come from holding up this mirror that the function that the sociologists perform partly to the elites? Where does this catalyst for change come from?
We can't really, we can't plan for a visionary leader. If a visionary leader comes by, and if he's of the benevolent and not the malevolent kind, then future generations will be grateful, thankful to him. But in the meantime, I think that we should continue with the work of educating the next generation. I place a very high value on education and on sustaining our legal order. Mobilization is good, it's important, I think it's indispensable. But, we are now at a stage where it's very paradoxical. Many people seem to feel that every problem must have a political solution. And at the same time, they hate the political solutions that are on offer. I think
सरकार को कुछ करना चाहिए is the default state, and that this is what Sanjay Sanyal criticized in 2020 with Shekhar Gupta, 2021.
we have placed too much load on the political system. There are other institutions which have to be nurtured with greater care. And I do believe that the educational system requires more attention than we have given to it.
On this issue of inequality that you have mentioned and written so extensively about, when VP Singh's government looked at using in some ways the political process, the political structures to re-engineer the inequities of caste, it was something that you opposed, though you support affirmative action in other ways. Why did you oppose this?
I think that it was in many ways a retrograde step. I think that the idea that our problems can be solved through a system of extensive quotas is a mistake.
Oh, fuck.
And I was not the first to point out that this is a mistake. Let me put it like this. I think that what we need and what we don't give enough thought to is the problem of building citizenship. I think a system of quotas is antithetical to the principle of citizenship.
Oh,
By the principle of citizenship, I mean a principle which recognizes certain rights and certain capabilities of the individual, irrespective of caste, race, gender, and so on. I was reading the debates in the Constituent Assembly, and Pandit Govind Ballabh Pant made a very stirring statement saying that we must stop thinking about castes and communities and think about the citizen instead. And everybody cheered.
bhai, this was Savarkar's dream. Fuck. This was the Hindu Mahasabha draft constitution. This is all I have ever wanted from this government. Yes. The idea of quotas is antithetical to the idea of a citizen. The state must not acknowledge castes. That's what he is indirectly saying. Gravity is saying, how does the strategy of playing the victim work so effectively for some groups like African Americans or Islamists, and why haven't Hindus been able to utilize it the same way? Gravity, many reasons. Firstly, up until one point, we were so proud that we didn't think we were the victims. Then came the point where we realized, oh, some problems are happening, and therefore we are actually a bad country. Let's just forget our ancestry. Then now we live in a weird situation where we are the best and victimized at the same time. That also can't work. So it has to be divided into different geographies and stuff. That yes, we are really awesome. Chanakya was great. We discovered zero. We even had planes in the Rig Veda. But for some reason, right now, we are losing the battle to Muslims. So can you all help us out? So that kind of a discourse, kind of a point also can't be made. So in the end, it has to be, I'm saying, if you are looking to do that, just that, I don't want to do just that. But if someone wanted to do just that, compete with them on the Victimhood Olympics, then it has to be laser sharp focus on data, and which no one will fund in the government or in outside institutions and stuff, because the government themselves don't fund. Everywhere else, the government funds. So they will have to go on showing in every Muslim locality, the Hindu is facing some problem, and therefore you see we are in fact victims. Now, even that can't work, kind of, because the victimhood gravy train has probably sailed and left the station. According to me, it's no longer cool to be a victim. It's going to go away pretty soon. It's all ended with Trump's victory. Up until Trump's victory in 2016, people would have cared if by everything that we have today, all the discourse that we have today, if we had had it even up until 2014-15, it would have mattered. Today, I don't think it's going to matter anymore. Today, Indu Vishwanathan and all the NRIs trying to compete with using similar lexicon terminology about how Hindus are as vulnerable as everyone else, all the other groups and stuff. That ship has sailed. That ship could have sailed even for the Jews, but they won't let it because they own all the sails. They own all the ships. We are not that rich. Our people who are that rich don't care. They care about women's cricket and hot shit. So you're never going to be able to convince them. Maybe 1 or 2 billionaires, 1 or 2 millionaires are not going to be able to change these things. So if the government starts funding these things, government starts to give hints, sort of nudges or winks at these billionaires, see what I'm funding, you must also fund these things, then there will be a significant non-left, a different kind of way of looking at Indian Hinduism research in academia. But I hope it's not just on victimhood and stuff. I hope it's to genuinely solve problems.
You know that after independence, shortly after the new constitution was adopted, the government set up a commission, a backward classes commission, under Kaka Kalelkar, to recommend measures for the other backward classes. And the recommendations of that commission were infructuous because Kaka Kalelkar, although he didn't give a note of dissent, he wrote a long letter to the president saying that his heart was not in it. And I think that he gave a very convincing explanation. He said that, I think that he said somewhere that nothing should be allowed to stand between the individual, the integrity, the freedom of the individual and the integrity of the nation. And
No, actually I didn't mean women's cricket. I meant Major League Cricket in USA. That's what Satya Nadella is funding. Or the other guy. Either the Microsoft guy or the Google guy.
and I'm opposed to it. So I think that that my opposition to
This is the kind of backward RSS VHP thinking that makes us lose all wars, makes us late for every party, makes us not get invited into any party. Okay, you can never have your own Instagram or YouTube or Twitter. That's the easy way to do it. That's how China does it. If you say that yes, throughout the constitution, let's live like China, then fair enough. I don't know how that works. China is not as diverse as India. But anyway, when you have your own in YouTube and Instagram, no matter who the fuck endorses it, people won't get on it. Because right now the public square has turned into Instagram, YouTube, or Twitter. If you have to win your battles, do the legwork, do the hard work of winning your battles on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter.
a comprehensive system of quotas is really in the spirit of the makers of the constitution, in the spirit of Kaka Kalelkar. I'm not against affirmative action. In fact, I think that some affirmative action.
Yeah, remember coup and remember that stuff Candace Owens' husband funded. The one that Donald Trump endorsed करके थक गया, कोई नहीं जाता है वहां पे. What's the name of it? Some other bullshit wannabe Twitter platform. No one went there. Not right wingers, not leftists.
Is
not Gab. Where Donald Trump used to write statuses up until he became the president this time. I think Candace Owens' husband owns that.
Extremely important. But I really don't believe that we can run our present constitution if we add 33% quotas for women in addition
Holy shit.
to the spirit of
Holy
the very
shit.
convincing explanation. He said that, I think that he said somewhere that nothing should be allowed to stand between the individual, the integrity, the freedom of the individual and the integrity of the nation. And I'm opposed to it. So I think that my opposition.
Gravity, that's not going to happen unless India is a significant financial economic player. We are not going to be a financial economic player, significant financial or economic player in our lifetimes. So YouTube probably won't die in our lifetimes. But even when it is dead, the next YouTube will come out from again USA or China, because we are going to be a distant third. If we were neck and neck with USA and China, then it could have happened. It's not going to otherwise happen.
To a comprehensive system of quotas is really in the spirit of the makers of the Constitution, in the spirit of Kaka Khanilkar. I'm not against affirmative action. In fact, I think that some affirmative action is extremely important. But I really don't believe that we can run our present Constitution if we add 33% quotas for women in addition to the quotas that we have for the scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes, and the other backward classes. And there will be claims for quotas within quotas, as there have been. As you know. So we will reduce ourselves to a checkerboard of quotas. You know, somebody once told me as a joke, the American political scientist Myron Wiener, he once told me that. He said, you know, we
Anand, but they built TikTok.
were talking about, and he knew about my opposition to quotas, and he was not very friendly. And he said, you know, one of these days I'm thinking of standing up.
Oh yeah. Nobody knew that it was Chinese until Americans started talking about it. Yes, that's true.
And asking for a quota for left-handed Lithuanian Jews. So you know, the idea that India is different, and standing up and asking for a quota for left-handed Lithuanian Jews.
They are making actively
not very friendly.
making fun of reservations.
And he said, you know, one of these days I'm thinking of standing up and asking for a quota for left-handed Lithuanian Jews. So you know, the idea that India is different and India can achieve constitutional democracy through a system of comprehensive quotas is, my basic opposition to comprehensive quotas is that it is a threat to the structure of our constitution.
Holy shit.
What do you feel?
Quotas are a threat to the structure of the constitution. With quotas, you can't have democracy properly because shit, this is so Savarkarite. Why, if they are not just citizens, if they are this and that and everything other than a citizen, then how will your democracy work? And that's the reason that India will not do a lot of stuff. Gravity saying, but aren't we aiming to become the next financial hub like Singapore and Dubai through gift city like projects? How far is that? There is one gift city in one state. So gift city look promising. The design is also good. I don't think it's a skill or capital issue. It's a perception issue. If it comes from India, it's treated as inferior, like the Perplexity founder actively tries to hide that he's Indian. Yes, status.
That the initiatives that were taken at that time have
India is a low status country, no matter how much it acquires in GDP right now.
played themselves out, particularly in the way that they have expressed themselves in the access to power, the pursuit of power, and its expression.
Yes, I think that it's easy enough now, with the advantage of hindsight, to say that we did not pay enough attention to education, to elementary education, to primary health care. And if I may use a distinction, it's the distinction between universality and equality. I think that we were too caught up with equality. I'm not a great enthusiast for equality.
Fuck!
And we did not.
Oh! Holy shit. This guy is 90 years old and now we are finding out about him. This is like an Indian Thomas Sowell. Half Bengali Thomas Sowell. What the fuck? How old is this guy? He is 91 years old. Fuck. 91 years old. And I'm finding out about him now. Ever since the beginning of this interview, I've been thinking that it would be so nice to meet this man, and now I'm flabbergasted. Anand expects a lot from social science. Bro, everyone else is also honest. They honestly want equality. So you have to distinguish between intelligent and dumb, not honest and dishonest. Some might know that, yeah, equality is not possible, but still I'll say it. But most people, most leftist social scientists today actually believe in equality. They think that it's possible. Try to contact him, dude. Yes. They say, Niranjan, tell me, how did UAE and Saudi boom their economy in 30 years? Can't we at least do the same by improving hygiene and attracting tourists in our beautiful natural landscapes in tier statistic? Yeah, tell me, when did UAE and Saudi Arabia attract tourists by improving their hygiene only? First, they became rich as fuck, which they were able to do by having a complete stronghold on law and order, which Islamist countries have anyway. But their intentions, UAE's intentions, changed all of a sudden, and then Saudi Arabia's intention has only now changed. That's just one country we're talking about, and 1.5 countries basically. So yes, they are monarchies. You are giving example of China's dictatorship or Islamist monarchies. Which of that is going to work in India?
Distinction. It's the distinction between universality and equality. I think that we were too caught up with equality. I'm not a great enthusiast for equality, and we did not pay sufficient attention to universality. And by universality, I mean simply the principle which makes available certain basic facilities and certain basic capabilities to all members of society, irrespective of race, caste, creed, gender. But once you admit that, then you also recognize that what can be made.
Zuckerberg wanted to do this with free basics, and everyone opposed this. Libertarians and leftists.
Universally available have to be a limited number of basic and fundamental things. And you should allow your preoccupation with inequality in the distribution of income to interfere with this. I think we paid too much attention.
This section is epic.
We were too caught up with equality. I'm not a great enthusiast for equality, and we did not pay sufficient attention to universality. And by universality, I mean simply the principle which makes available certain basic facilities and certain basic capabilities to all members of society.
Arey bhai, this is so Chanakya. This is the Sanjeev Sanyal way of capitalism. That, okay, let the poorest of the poor have some amenities. Let's just guarantee that. And because otherwise people don't have anything to lose. If even Jordan Peterson agrees that if too many people at the bottom of the hierarchy have nothing to lose, then they burn down the hierarchy. That's the end of the society. Which is what some trads mean when they say that eliminating Jati Varna will destroy Hindu society, but they know only the theology aspect of it and not the sociology or the historical sociology aspect of it, which is why they kind of mistake it. But based on the texts which they are saying these things, that eliminating Jati Varna will destroy Hindu society, what they mean is, or what those texts meant was that when we had those names as the only representations of this hierarchy that we have in our society, these different kinds of hierarchies in every locality in the Hindu society, that Hindu society will fall if this hierarchy ceases to exist. Now, Sanjeev Sanyal, Chanakya, André, Beteille all agree on this one thing then. And this guy is 91 years old and no one's heard of him. He's half French and half Bengali. Still no one gives a shit. He actually is given a shit about, but conveniently people just ignore these aspects. Maybe he got Padma Bhushan in 2005. He gets invited to all of those elite Delhi journalist and academia circles. We had so many greats. Free basics for the bottomest rung of the society and nothing else for anyone. That's the goal here.
Universality, I mean simply the principle which makes available certain basic and certain basic capabilities to all members of society, irrespective of race, caste, creed, gender. But once you admit that, then you also recognize that what can be made universally available have to be a limited number of basic and fundamental things. And you should not allow your preoccupation with inequality in the distribution of income to interfere with this. I think we paid too much attention to the eradication of inequality. I don't believe that we can eradicate inequality, and I don't believe that we need to eradicate inequality. But we do.
No, Gravity, I personally don't, because that's too much, because it creates weird incentives where you rent it out to someone and leave. If you were living somewhere which was not a pakka house, that means you can live somewhere that is not a pakka house. Nothing is going to be given to you that's not an absolute essential. Demolishing Chaturvarna will do nothing to Hindu society. Okay. Yeah, Pakka slums. Yes. So that would end up being that would be the case in theory, that we always are at a threat of that ending up being the case. Okay, that now everyone's incentive structure is to be the poorest one, but that won't work in the end because of metaphysical desire. Because after all, having a lot of things has always mattered. Even when hierarchies have flipped, like being upper caste used to be the incentive, now being lower caste is the incentive. But having more amounts of things, that has not gone away, unless you are doing that asceticism game. Okay, so we are not going to be threatened by this completely. Some people will do some corruption, like if the government says that only people who have earnings of 500 rupees, only they will get this freebie and the others won't. So the guy who can earn 600 rupees, 700 rupees will somehow do some corruption to show that he earns 500 rupees, or will make sure that he doesn't earn more than 500 rupees. That stuff will be there. But this has to be so much for the bottomest of the bottom rung that it's practically irrelevant to the rest of the society, so that everyone can't do that that corruption. The middle class can't think that, okay, now I'm going to show that I earn 500 rupees. No. Affordable housing project, small houses in villages. No, that's even worse. Even more incentives for renting it out and living elsewhere.
You need to secure universality.
Vijay is saying, if I call, have you listened to economist Rothin Roy? He has some. No, I've never heard of him.
In the sense in which I don't think that this was perceived quite as clearly in the first decades after independence.
But what about how would the people, let's say, less privileged in the scale of equality, less equal,
Yes.
be able to access political power, be able to influence decision making? What systems, structures, and processes might we look to create for them or facilitate?
Well, this is the hardest part of it. I don't want to give the impression that this is an easy problem. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, you can't tell people who are disadvantaged, marginalized, and excluded.
Holy shit! I did not know this. Is what Barbarka Smithy is saying, is that correct? That you have to own the land in order to get that Awas Yojana? If that is so, if in fact she is right, then this is one of the most biggest bullshit horseshit yojanas I've ever heard of. You are a goddamn landowner, and you expect other people to fund your house. What the fuck?
Wait for another decade. Wait for another generation. Wait for 2 more generations. Ralph Bunche once made a very telling statement.
Yeah, it's increasing their net worth, but all that's fake. That's fake GDP. That's fake net worth. Because in the end, everyone knows that he has not produced anything. At best, he has produced something that he can mortgage and or rent it out. That's what. So why should we fund their net worth? Why should we, for free, fund or give them net worth, or give them something to mortgage, or give them something to rent out? It's not essential. If they are, so they are plot of landowners. Holy fuck! All this time, I thought these were random, poor, homeless people who were being given homes.
Said that equality is not something that we would like to enjoy posthumously. So that is true. I understand that is true. But I don't think at the same time that it is very useful to make false promises to people and to suggest that all of this can be.
It is very useful to make false promises. Bhai, this is the Thomas Sowell of India. What is this guy saying? This guy is the Thomas Sowell of sociology.
I understand that is true. But I don't think at the same time that it is very useful to make false promises to people and to suggest that all of this can be wiped out. And I think that we can do very much more. And I would say that some initiatives have taken place in the spread elementary education, elementary healthcare. I mean, that is the route through which the other facilities that are available can be accessed without doing damage to the system as a whole.
You have also written about how inequalities that stemmed from the caste system were really not all-encompassing historically, as
Yes.
is widely believed,
Yes.
and have continued and have manifest themselves in different forms of inequality.
Yes.
Yes, Barbara Smriti. So this PM Awas Yojana, it's of course a way to win votes, but also it's a way to boost up GDP and also create more employment, more guaranteed employment. See, right now, building a house with public tax money, you get to work here. So isn't it a nice thing? See, I've employed so many people, but it's a handicap on taxpayers. So therefore, it should not be done.
How have you seen that
Yes.
Unfold?
Yes, I think that's very important. You know, I think that one can view caste in more ways than one. I think one can view caste in terms of a certain social morphology. You know, the different groups, the different jatis, ranked high, low, and medium,
Fuck.
and so on. And one is a jati.
Inequality.
Yes.
How have you seen that
Yes.
unfold?
Yes, I think that's very important. You know, I think that one can view caste in more ways than one. I think one can view caste in terms of a certain social morphology. You know, the different groups, the different jatis, ranked high, low, and medium, and so on. And one is a jat or a kurmi or a chamar or a brahmin or a caste. But one can also see caste as a kind of mindset which tends to align everything hierarchically. So in that sense, in the second sense, caste has been very powerful indeed. But even in the past, there were other sources of inequality arising from the ownership, control, and use of land, for instance. And it isn't necessarily true that all members of ritually superior castes were wealthy landowners, or all members of castes at the middle level of the ritual hierarchy were landless sharecroppers. So there were other forms of inequality, particularly inequalities arising from the ownership, control, and use of land, inequalities in the agrarian social structure. But today, of course, new kinds of inequality are emerging in the sector of society to which both of us belong. A new occupational structure has emerged. And this occupational structure has its own inequalities. The new educational system has emerged, and the two are closely related to each other. And these inequalities,
Great time to pause here. Think of CPM then in 1982, who banned English education. And then, therefore, no wonder it's only the Brahmins with those castes of Kolkata who remain elites. They create their own castes. Their single caste is called Bhadralok. It has all the features of a caste. They have their own consumption patterns. They have their own exclusive ways of doing things. It's an exclusive group. And they have their own rituals. As long as you consider rituals to be a religious thing and only a religious thing and only be associated with theology, you are not going to understand the significance of rituals or the point of rituals. By point of rituals, I don't mean in the religious sense. I mean it has to be your sociological desire and goal to understand rituals sociologically. So every exclusive group has their own rituals. So the Bhadralok caste, the Brahmins, those castes of Kolkata, their religiosity is something of a broken down, diluted form of Brahmo Samaj, and their consumption patterns are Rabindra Sangeet up until the 90s, Satyajit films and stuff. Post 90s, it becomes rock music, and people who are richer, even in the 90s, they used to listen to some Bob Dylan and stuff. Now, the rituals in that situation will be specific things you do repeatedly every day. Maybe you get up in the morning and listen to some Beethoven, a specific Rabindra Sangeet. That's your ritual, bro. And those castes got solidified in Bengal because everyone did not have equal access to English education. No one has, morally speaking, metaphorically speaking, no one has equal access to anything anyway, but at least legally speaking, everyone must have equal access to everything, which was taken away from poorer families even if they wanted, even if they could have managed, they could not get educated in English just because some would not have wanted to get educated in English. The argument given was that how will a poor villager in their homes in a village learn English? So the commission which was set up to debate this said that, okay, how will that poor villager teach his sons or daughters to do mathematics? So let's eliminate mathematics as well. So in the end, they'll have to learn whatever they learn in this classroom only. So learn English as well, because that's going to get you jobs. And lo and behold, everyone grew up not learning English, except the Brahmins Buddhist classes of Kolkata, who went to elite private schools. Dumbas Mishra is saying, but according to left, lingua franca is English spoken also overwhelmingly by upper caste. Don't learn Hindi, speak. Microfinance, landowners, scholars, from a skilled men, traders, military people. Why exactly did they ban English? Yeah, for this reason. This was the declared reason, that it will be too difficult for a kid. But what about the kids? It's always about the kids. Kids in the villages. How will they learn English? Now, my hunch is that it was not because of that reason. My hunch is that they feared a sort of a Hindu upheaval politically at the hands of Anandamargis. Okay, you've heard of the Anandamargis getting burnt. Okay, 12 Anandamargis who got burned on a bridge called Bijon Setu in Kolkata, burnt alive, and with that usual excuse that, oh, we thought they were child abductors. Anytime anyone wants to kill or beat someone to death in India, they just later on have to say, oh, I thought he was a child abductor. You see, that's why ab hum ka kare. So up until 1981, the Anandamargis had been doing a bunch of Hindutva things, or at least Hindu things, and also had been vociferously demanding the ban on English education. क्योंकि Western culture आएगा भोसड़ी के हमारा क्या होगा सनातन का? Sanatan नहीं रहेगा. Sanatan will cease to be eternal because of English education. Okay, it's so Sanatan. So I think CPIM tried to ride that horse. They thought that, oh, this might be just a popular discourse that's coming up. Let's reap the benefits of it, and also take pressure off the backs of our poor brethren in the villages.
Not suggesting that these inequalities in the forms in which they are present are all acceptable. But these inequalities, by their very nature, are such that we have to live with them. You cannot expect in a highly differentiated occupational structure that all occupations will give you the same income or the same esteem or the same authority.
Esteem.
But those inequalities...
Esteem and authority. You see, Retrowave, if you're still listening, this is why the difference between class and caste.
Very nature are such that we have to live with them. You cannot expect in a highly differentiated occupational structure that all occupations will give you the same income or the same esteem or the same authority. But those inequalities, in my judgment, are quite different from the inequalities of caste and gender, because those inequalities, the inequalities of caste and gender, are fixed at birth, so to say, and there's nothing that one can do about them. So if we move...
Who can guess? Jyotiraditya ekটু হেয়ালি করছে. Some political parties opposed computers coming to India. Can you believe it? Who can say in West Bengal who opposed the coming of computers? Any guesses?
Commerce system in which the predominant inequalities were inequalities of caste to one in which inequalities based on occupation, income, education become more salient. We haven't left inequalities behind, but we've left more odious forms of inequality behind.
And yet that is...
Because of the 1991 reforms. No, CPIM. And when computers in fact came, they said that just like Jyoti Basu, I think, as far as I remember, said that just like you end up accepting your daughter even if she is pregnant before marriage, in the same way we are now accepting computers.
Sort of, in a sense, overlaid by the access to political power and the expression and the manifestation of it that people otherwise unequal would have enjoyed or enjoy. And in what ways do you feel that creates a more turbulent society?
It does create a turbulent society. It certainly creates a turbulent society because inequalities of
the more dangerous are gravity. He's saying some opposed computers, some opposed industries. West Bengal is a crazy place. And 90s born commies, okay, proper CPM supporters, they have created the perfect apologia now, which is say that, yes, we were wrong to do that. Every 90s kid you find, they will say, every 90s CPIM supporting kid you find, if not on the English education at least, a lot of them still are iffy about it and kind of apologize for it, that yes, it was required for Garib log and all. But on the computer issue, all of them say that yes, I have always maintained that yes, CPM was wrong to do that. Bro, you were not born when it was being done, or you were sucking your mother's breasts. When the fuck were you anyone to always say that it was wrong? You didn't matter back then. The moment you started mattering, you started saying that yes, computers are great, because by then all your friends are leaving to Bengaluru for jobs, and you can't now make that argument anymore.
And education need not coincide with inequalities in the distribution of power in a system in which the politics of mobilization is very important. And so this disparity can be quite explosive. Those who capture the commanding heights of the political system may be deeply resentful.
Ashkacham, the scam call centers in Kolkata are usually not run by Brahmins with those Kaistos, nor a lot of time Hindus even.
Of those others who achieve success through the educational and occupational system, the art of governance is to see that that resentment does not destroy the new educational and occupational system, which is of value, in my judgment, for future generations, for the country as a whole. And there is that particular kind of threat. But coming back again to the new inequalities that are emerging, you know, from the sociological point of view, we have to take into account not just the existence of inequalities in the
Okay, CPM wanted job replacements for those who will lose their jobs after installation of computers. Why? If you're a typist, go type on the computer. If your skills are really there, and if your skills are not there, how will you become immediately skilled at computers and deprive everyone else of the benefits of computers? Even in theory, commies arguments don't work anymore. I remember parents opposed internet connections at home, saying that kids will start watching porn. Now they are addicted to WhatsApp, YouTube Shorts. Yes, we may discuss this at length, but the unfortunate truth is reservation, 49% is the lowest it will ever be, is going to go higher from here. It's political suicide for any party to trust that. Endless criticism should help. And having the right arguments to help you say these things, and courageously, not be a trad and say Jati Varna should never go away because Hinduism will fall as a result of it, or it was distortions happened because of British, or Gita says caste should exist, or Gita says caste doesn't exist, etc. If you point out to the inevitability of it and the universality of caste-like status-based hierarchies, only then you can make a coherent argument against reservations, which a whole lot of people must immediately start doing. Can you elaborate a little, Niranjan, so that I could explain to him? Yes, I'm saying if a guy who is a typewriter who is going to lose jobs because of computers coming in, if that is the claim, how was that claim going to look like? What's the reality of that in the world? You can type in a typewriter, but you can't type in a computer, or you don't know how to turn a computer on. That would take 1 week to teach them, right? So they didn't have to oppose computers for 1 week of training on how to turn a computer on, because all you are going to do is type only. And if it was so impossible that, oh, I'm a typewriter, I cannot handle computers at all, then what? Let's eliminate cars so that we have more bullock cart drivers. Or should cars not have been brought to India because our bullock cart drivers will lose our jobs? Which one do you prefer? Which genre of preventing progress, preventing comfort and convenience and progress of technology in society would you prefer? The nature of job, yeah, Gita is so straight about Varna, man. No, Gita is not straight about Varna.
the occupational and educational systems, but also the reproduction of inequality. I mean, it's one thing to say that there will be people at the top, people at the middle, and people at the bottom, and you must accept this. But it's quite another thing to find that the same faces are there at the top and at the middle and at the bottom from generation to
Yeah, all the fuckers who oppose the factory at Shingur, why are all of them now demanding industry? What changed? Why didn't socialism work for them?
generation. There is a great deal of reproduction of inequality in our country. But I must say that there is also a certain amount of mobility now in this society. We don't know enough. This is unfortunate systems, but also the reproduction of inequality. I mean, it's one thing to say that there will be people at the top, people at the middle, and people at the bottom, and you must accept this. But it's quite another thing to
You must accept this. Yeah. People who have read that only one line from Gita or read the ISKCON translation of Gita say these things. I can show you countless trads who use Gita to justify birth-based casteism even today. Okay, let's see the final few minutes of his speech here.
the reproduction of inequality. I mean, it's one thing to say that there will be people at the top, people at the middle, and people at the bottom, and you must accept this. But it's quite another thing to find that the same faces are there at the top and at the middle and at the bottom from generation to generation. There is a great deal of reproduction of inequality in our country. But
yes, and that has largely gone away in the rest of the country, but it has not gone away at all in West Bengal. What Anand is pointing out here is half relevant in case of West Bengal, that success of Brahmins under British. They were lots of upper castes were successful under the Islamic rulers as well and under the British as well. They adapted instead of sitting and waiting around for them to be given. Absolutely, yes. The genius or the evil genius of Bengali Brahmins was that they created a situation where no one else can even think of adapting. That's the problem. That's a blame that Brahmins, those castes of Bengal must share or must bear.
I must say that there is also a certain amount of mobility now in this society.
Exactly.
We don't know enough. This is unfortunate.
He is saying certain amount of mobility. That certain amount of mobility was not happening in West Bengal.
That our sociologists have not told us enough about the new middle class that is emerging in our metropolitan centers and the possibilities of mobility in that middle class. And I suspect that there are certain sectors of Indian society today, particularly in the metropolitan cities like Bombay, Delhi, maybe Calcutta, in which rates of mobility among the middle classes are just as...
Calcutta metropolitan. By the way, how many of you all know what's the meaning of metropolis? Metropolis literally means matribhumi, do you know? It comes from mater, matra, matri, mata. Matri ka polis. Polis means city. So, meri matribhumi, matri city. That's metropolis. Yeah. Anyway, let's see. What about Kolkata?
Of mobility in that middle class. And I suspect that there are certain sectors of Indian society today, particularly in the metropolitan cities like Bombay, Delhi, maybe Calcutta, in which rates of mobility among the middle classes are just as high as in Western societies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was the result of pre-1991 liberalization, which is why today, me being from the V3 is friends with only V1s and V2s. Rudral Ghosh's interview with Art Plus. Oh, acha. Okay. Dekhta hai. What is WhatsApp University? Metropolis. Oh, okay. Yeah. Do your research. Okay, then. Thank you for joining the live stream, guys. See you soon. This was insane. We have discovered a Thomas Sowell of India. It will be fun to check out his papers. I look forward to it. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining. Good night.
যদি সবাই ফিরে যায় ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা সবাই ফিরে যায় যদি গহন পথে যাওয়ার কালে কেউ ফিরে না যায় তবে পথের কাটা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে যদি আলো না ধরে ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা আলো না ধরে যদি ঝড় বাদলে আধার রাতে দুয়ার দেয় ঘরে তবে বজ্রা নলে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো রে